glorious listeners. It is episode 48. Ben, good evening.
Evening, dude. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. It's nice to see you there on my tiny screen.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too. You got a
glorious.
halo behind your head.
Yes, well, there we go. That is just my angelic nature. So, tonight... you're either tired or there's a severe internet delay there. So tonight, guys, we are going, as ever, onto the hobby desk. We are going to talk a bit about batch painting and the joy that is. Hobby pledges, and I revisit chipping from one of the earlier episodes. In the Galaxy of War, Aeronautica is now with us, and I've had it in my hands, so we'll talk about that as well. And we're going to cover off a little bit about what we think of the futuristic emos that are the Raven Guard, and the grumpy Iron Men that are the Iron Hands, as well as if something cool is announced on Sunday. I'm sure we'll touch on that. Into the mortal realms, and we've got a excellent surprise for you. We are introducing...
Or a shock.
Or a shock, yes. 9-inch Dan will be joining us on the show. So Dan is one of our new content chaps. Been with us from the start, really, in the shadows, but is now making his presence known. And he's going to talk a bit about his hobby evolution into AOS, coming from Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and where his hobby's going with the changes in Age of Sigmar that we've seen over the last few years. Then we'll go into the community. So we've got our usual shout-outs on Instagram and from Facebook, a competition winner, and Ben and I are going to talk a little bit about where we buy our soldiers and what our motivations are for that choice. And then moving into the wilds, finally. It's Wild Week this time. We're going to talk a bit about MDF terrain, some roleplay, and Warhammer Quest as well, or some cool figures on Kickstarter that we found today.
Hero Quest figures.
Hero Quest figures?
Hero Quest
I thought it was Warhammer Quest figures.
No, Hero Quest.
Ah, okay. Well, there we go. That was an excellent finish then. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. Do grab some refreshments and we will go on to the hobby desk.
Hi guys, and welcome to episode 48's Hobby Desk. I've just had my refreshments bought by my lovely wife Jo, who's joined me for a little bit. Hi Jo.
Hi.
Makes a fantastic coffee.
I know.
And paints actually an awesome bit of non-metal metallic as well.
Well, the coffee's why I actually travel down to your house sometimes.
When's the sometimes? How often does that happen?
Not often enough.
I'd agree with that.
The trouble is, when I go into Cornwall, sometimes they don't want to let me out.
No, charge people to get out of Cornwall.
Yeah.
Actually do if you go via Saltash.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so what are we going to talk about?
Well, if you had listened when I was telling everybody in the intro what we would be talking about, you would know. So we're going to start...
Someone was trying to break into my shed.
Well, that's true. We are going to start by talking about the excitement of batch painting and how much you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, or not.
Right, that's that covered then.
Yeah, done. Move on. So, what are we going to talk about?
You've finished, since we last spoke, you have finished the first of the big batches that you divvied up of your orcs. So, I thought it'd be a great time to reflect on what you felt went well about batch painting them, and what you thought you could do differently moving forward.
Yeah, so I probably batch paint in a slightly ridiculous way compared to most people. A lot of people, when they think of batch painting, they think of painting 10 or at the most 15 models, maybe 20. My first batch was 62 models, which included 3 characters and 2 chariots. which was which is a bit ridiculous.
There are armies. There are 2,000 point armies that are smaller than that.
Yeah. I was kind of banking on the fact that the models were quite simple, but they weren't really all that simple in the end, because the cast wasn't that good. You had to work around a lot of the problems that created, which is a bit of a shame. But I think there's some key things to batch painting, which is keeping it simple as you can. I think that's really important. Using a decent sized brush. So I would say minimum one, probably even a 2. And making the most of the size of the brush, so you can have a lot of paint in the body of the brush, and you can crack your way through 2, maybe 3 areas on a model before your paint runs out. Making the most of sensible colour choices, I think, is another big one. So if you're painting over white, you're going to really struggle to do lots of batch work. You're going to have to mess around quite a lot. So I think choosing colours that you're comfortable with over base coats and foundations that are going to be a bit more forgiving, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
So I would never choose to batch paint 60 elves, for example. No. It wouldn't happen, because I'm not as confident painting white, and I'm not as confident with the sort of silvery metal as I am with the sort of rustier metals and the green skin and the leather. Yeah. Those things, I've done so many orcs in those colours that I feel pretty comfortable doing quite quickly.
You have painted the odd orc, yes.
And then using a few tricks. So I think washes are really useful.
Yeah.
To sort of tie things together halfway through. I used a lot of those with those orcs. What I'm finding really helpful at the moment is using contrast paints as base coats, not necessarily as the finished job, but using it as a base coat takes a number of stages out, and then I can just work on it from there. So, if I give an example, Bestial Brown, or what is now Mournfang Brown, I would have gone grey, Mournfang Brown, Agrax Earthshade, then Scrag, then Mournfang Brown again, Scrag, and what's the lightest one I use?
Deathclaw?
Deathclaw, yeah. That's quite a few stages ready for a batch paint. So what I would tend to do is take off the Deathclaw and finish at Scrag. What I'm finding now is that I can take out the Mournfang Brown, the Agrax Earthshade, and a little bit of the redoing with Mournfang Brown just by using Gore thingy fur.
Gore Grunter fur.
Gore Grunter fur. So that just takes a few stages off. I still use a bit of Agrax every now and again to get the tones right, but over that.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that speeding things up quite a lot.
Excellent.
And using weathering.
Yeah.
Weathering helps.
Yeah.
Man.
Yes.
Definitely helps.
Secret to all speedily painted things.
Find a way of masking the bugger ups.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and blood. Joe's reminded me and blood.
And blood, yeah. Blood's good.
Yeah.
Blood's good.
I have found that you have to choose a key element. This is one of my things. So when I was painting those orcs that I've just finished, I felt that the skin and the weapons were the two big ones. And get them right. Because if that's the thing that's in your face, if the YMCA orcs have got their weapons above their head, so when you look at the unit, it's a big part of what the unit is.
Yes.
So I actually sort of did I wouldn't say non-metal metallic technique, because that's wrong, but the light and dark shading that I would normally do if I was doing that kind of, giving that impression, but using true metals, so getting a dark to light to dark all the way across it. I did that relatively quickly on the weapons. I didn't fuss over it, and I think it looked really good when you looked at the unit. And if you were to pick one up and have a look, you'd be like, oh, it's not brilliant. But I think across the unit it works really well. With my Iron Jaws, for example, it's the white armour.
Yeah.
If you get the white armour right, everything else doesn't matter, really, because that's all that people look at.
Yeah, it's interesting because you read there's a few thoughts on that, isn't there? Faces and bases was one.
That's what it used to be when we worked for Games Workshop, wasn't it? Faces and bases.
Was always one. So I know, like you, it kind of makes me think a little bit of batch painting. Makes me think a little bit of Slimming World, right? So, so bear with me, right? So on the face of it, it's a beautiful thing, okay? So you get to have a load of models, you get to do some cool painting. When you're done, you're going to feel amazing. But the reality is, it's bloody hard work.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So, yeah. And I think it's worth sort of saying that it's not going to be for everyone for a number of reasons. Not least of which is the fact that whilst you now have got painted those 62 models, and that's awesome, that has taken a lot of hours. It might not have taken, it doesn't seem like it's taken a long period of like days, but you've put in some serious painting time on those days to get that done. Yeah. And if somebody either didn't, well, I'm not sure you wholly enjoyed it the whole time, but some people really can't stand sitting down for more than an hour or don't have the opportunity to do so. The fact is that batch painting in that way is going to take a flipping long time. Isn't it? So I think that's worth bearing in mind. Brushes thing is interesting because I must admit I use a 2 now. A Winsor & Newton Series 2 is my go-to brush. Because it keeps the point, and like you say, you can load a bit more into it. And something that I got from you, I think, just thinking about your example with contrast paint, something that I started to do to speed up batch painting was 50-50ing my agrax with airbrush medium, that what I ended up being able, what I have been able to cut out mostly is that re-going over with the base coat, except for in the recesses stage. Yeah. Or if I do it, it takes one coat, not several. I know that, I think I learnt that from the Blood Bowl Orcs when I put Rakkar Flesh on, which took me like 4 coats to get solid over the red base coat that I'd sprayed them. Then I promptly whacked a load of agrax on, and then it took me 4 coats again. And I was like, this is not good.
It's about being, I mean, it's very easy, and it's a sort of a natural thing to do, to move quick, to paint quickly when you're trying to finish quickly. And often that's not the way to do it. So it's a really good example. When I'm painting my white orcs, my white armoured orcs, I do not wash the white at all over the whole thing. I carefully pick out where I want the wash and put it in. It takes a tiny bit more time to apply the wash, but the overall time is saved hugely because I haven't got to go back and fanny around with the Rakkar Flesh again or whatever base coat it is you're using. And if you can get your wash to a consistency where it's going to the cracks where you want it, it's going to the places where you need it, and not staining or damaging the main surface that's going to take you ages to paint over, then you're kind of in for a winner, really. I think but there is this natural assumption is, I've got to paint the base coat and then whack on a load of wash, and it can really end up slowing you down, to be honest. And I remember talking to Tommy Saul about this, and he said, painting quickly is not about painting quickly with your brush and moving quickly and slapping loads of paint on. It's about being refined and being competent and making every brush stroke count and putting the paint in the right places. So you can get the same effect with minimum brush strokes. You will paint faster.
Yeah, it's about painting smarter, isn't it?
Yeah, paint smart. Yeah, exactly. More haste, less speed is another thing.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a new hashtag paint smart. Yeah.
One of the things that I have been doing a lot with, because I'm currently on my next batch is Ard Boys, 25 Ard Boys and 3 Ghoul Grunters. And I've been using a lot of contrast to water down a traditional paint,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with the green. I find that is absolutely fantastic. It's a little trick that I picked up of Darren Latham when we were talking about painting with a wash, and he puts a little bit of contrast paint into washes to give them a bit more colour saturation, a bit more vibrancy. And I figured, well, what happens if I do it in reverse and sort of get my green paint, which is the dark earthy one, which I'm so bad at remembering names, it's ridiculous. My dark green paint. And I stick in Militarum green to water it down, and I'm finding that is so much faster because it flows nicely. It goes where I want it, and it's watering down with a green rather than just watering, which is diluting the pigment. So I'm a big fan of that at the moment.
I'll going the other way from that. Dan was telling me, 9-inch Dan, that is, was telling me that he had seen a chap who was, in order to highlight contrast paints, was adding like bone or what have you to the contrast paint, and then using that as the highlight, and that so Dan uses that. He contrasts, and then he does the highlight by adding, and he does one highlight by adding that, that bone in.
His foundation base paint, but he's painted it over, yeah.
So, so anything that you would not do, or you are choosing not to do with your second batch that you did on the first batch, things that you're like, flipping heck, I'm not doing that again.
I didn't enjoy the YMCA orcs for lots of reasons. They slowed me right down because of the nature of the model. I'm really enjoying painting the Ard Boys because they just works. They're just a better model, I think. I think the thing that I've struggled with most is trying to do colours that I hadn't done before with contrast on like the sleeves. The sleeves killed me last time. So the lighter colours, I'm still not really very good at painting a lighter colour quickly. If I haven't started with that colour in the first place. So with those, that they were over a grey base coat and they were a bit dark, and then by the time they'd been washed and building them, it just didn't work very well. I know my Ard Boys are white, so I've just said I'm not very good at painting bright colours quickly, but I can do those quickly because I've started with that colour and I'm working around it. And because they're orcs, it doesn't really matter if I get something on the white because I can just turn it into a chip or a blood splash to cover it up.
Yeah.
Going back to what I was saying about choosing forgiving colour schemes.
But obviously you don't do that because every single brushstroke is completely deliberate and placed with thought and care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good.
It's like where all the feet on my models are dry brushed the same colour as their bases. That's because I've tried to tie them in, and it's not at all because I've just been messy with my dry brush.
No, not at all.
So
talking about brushes,
yes,
Element Games have, I think, announced they're releasing a new brush. I don't know if anyone knows about Element Games brushes, but did you know that they do a brush range?
Well, if you tell me what the range is called, I might know.
It's something I picked up when I was up having my painting lesson with Tommy. What do they call them? Well, they're just called Element Games. They don't have a brush sort of name, but they've divided them up into character brush, regiment brush, and then there's a stubby detail brush. But just take, for example, the regiment brush. It's a size 1. It's Kalinsky Sable. It's £7.49. So it's a really reasonable price. Interestingly on here, they say that the weight for weight Kalinsky Sable is 3 times the price of gold. It's a bit insane, really, isn't it?
That's like saffron.
Yeah. I had the chance to have a mess around with them when I was up in the painting lesson with Tommy, and it's really good. Apparently they're bringing out a newer one that's sort of even for more of the upmarket.
Ah, that's cool. Oh, Element Masterclass brushes. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So if you're looking for a cheap sort of Kolinsky Sable work brush, I know £7.49 might not seem cheap, but actually for a brush, it can be. You can pay £12 for it, easy for a equivalent.
Yeah, definitely. Just hopping back a little bit then. So I mentioned in the intro, I wanted to talk a bit about hobby pledges. So, and I think that kind of segues nicely from what you know, batch painting, because this is all part of your pledge to tackle your greenskins this year.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the last episode, we talked about my attempt to paint a little something from each game system that I play. Yeah. So I thought it'd be interesting just to talk about the motivations behind that, and why you've chosen this year to be Greenskin year, and the sort of things people should think about when they're thinking of making a hobby pledge, and what's going to work for them.
I think hobby pledges are different for different people. But I think the fun of them is that you're not making them to yourself. You're including other people into your hobby. It's about building community. So when, Sean posts his models, I feel like I'm part of his hobby because he said to us, this is what I'm going to do. And then he goes ahead and does it. And I really like that. I like that because I think painting can be quite lonely as a hobbyist. It can be quite isolating if you don't include other people in it. So I choose to do things that make painting more community. So the hobby pledge is one of them. I'm really enjoying that. That's a new thing. Painting night is another. And we kind of pledge to each other. That, in a way, it is a hobby pledge that we turn up every Tuesday and come what may, we sit down and we paint models. Mm-hmm. If it's Jo, she sits down and plays on her phone while looking at the model for at least 2 hours before paint meets the brush, and then she'll whack out an amazing sword and we'll be like, oh, cheers for making us look crap.
To be fair, she also keeps the evening going with marshmallows and cups of
That's only because she wants the marshmallows. So yeah, I think hobby pledges for me are about involving other people in your hobby and making it a more community thing. And I think the internet is a perfect medium for that. It really expands it out. And if you do it in the right places with, with the right people, it can be a really positive, empowering thing. And you get, by saying this is what I'm going to do, if people are listening to your pledge, then you can end up having quite a lot of support. People going, oh, have you done it? How close to you? Oh, come on, dude, you can finish it off. Yeah. The reason I chose to do orcs was because I had this feeling that if I didn't get through my back catalogue of orcs, particularly the orcs and goblins from fantasy, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a very long time.
So
while I was in the role of doing it, I figured,
why not? How are you finding the fact that, staying focused? Because, it's, what is it now? It's September. So there's still a few months left to go with all their new releases. Plus you're sat in a room surrounded by other projects you'd like to do. So how are you managing it?
I think that I think people are different when it comes to motivation. And I find when I've got myself a goal, I just keep going with it until it's done. Yeah. I wish I could do the same with Slimming World. Going back to the batch paint. But it's one of those things that, I really want the outcome. Yeah. Of that painting pledge. I really want it to be that. I really want to finish it. I've got this idea of sometime around Christmas putting my Age of Sigmar wire on a table, and when we meet up in November, I think is have it in my mind and putting it out and being like, yes, look at that. That's proper awesome.
Yeah.
And I do that. And then that's, I have that vision in my mind. It's actually a technique, a motivational technique, isn't it? Visualization. So you imagine what your outcome is and then you head for that outcome. But I think it's worth saying, if you are not enjoying what is your hobby, don't do it.
Yeah.
Stop, walk away, do something else. If you're not enjoying sitting down and painting, then don't. But I think if you've got a project in mind and you want to finish it, sit down, put some paint to the model, and I think before you know it, it'll be an hour later and you'll have done a fair bit.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Often, if you aren't feeling motivated to paint, just sitting down and picking up a brush. Yeah. You'll know within the first 5 minutes if you really aren't feeling it, then you aren't feeling it, and the model's going to look not very good. So don't carry on. But more often than not, you'll sit down to paint, and then you'll get caught up in it and push forward. So I think that's really worthwhile. I think, I suppose the bits I wanted to add on pledges was like, it's really important, I think, not to just look at one person's pledge and think, oh yes, that is the silver bullet for my hobby backlog or my painting backlog. You need to think about what works for you, and what doesn't work. I think it's quite hard sometimes. Like, I hear what you're saying about if you're not enjoying your hobby, don't do it. I think that the challenge is often the bits of the hobby we do enjoy most can come after bits that we don't particularly enjoy. And then, if you are in a financial position to get someone else to do that for you, great. But I think if you're not, then it can be good to put things in place like your painting night. So, for example, I don't particularly enjoy building models. I feel like I'm a bit like, oh, I just want to be painting it. So I will tend to build models. So I will tend to build models in front of the telly, with Harriet, or like if I go to someone's house for a bit of hobby, invariably, because I like having all my paints around me for when I'm painting, invariably I won't paint, I'll take things to build. So I can be there building with someone else.
It's a lot less equipment as well.
Yeah.
It's a box, clippers, knife, some files, glue, done.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you are thinking that you'd like a motivational hobby pledge, just have a think about being realistic, because there's no point. I know they say they aim for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll hit the stars or whatever it is they say. But if you just decide to go for 60 models, but you're not the sort of person who can just sit down and go at it, then you're just never going to get there. You're better off to do it in smaller sections. Because so I know for me that probably the most positive emotional response I get in the hobby, with the exception of just being in Warhammer World, is when I finish something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So doing a great big batch of stuff, I've tried it so many times and it just doesn't work because I'm so up and down emotionally anyway. And the hobby is an emotional thing, and I need that sort of, that's finished, because it gives me the motivation to do the next bit and the next bit and the next bit and the next bit. Hence breaking it up into smaller pieces.
I think that's really important. You need to know how you interact with your hobby, and there will be people who the idea of batch painting 60 models is the equivalent of, putting their head in a fan. It's not what they would consider fun or even the hobby at all.
And in that case, it won't be quicker for them. No,
it won't be, because you'll put it off. You won't want to do it. You'll sit there. You'll slow down. You drag your feet. You'll look on your Facebook on your phone rather than paint. You'll do all the procrastination. Also, there will be people who the thought of spending 100 hours on a model for Golden Demon is the same feeling. They're just not. It's not for them at all. you have to know who you are and what your hobby is. And I think coming to an understanding of what it is really important, because you shouldn't force the thing that you're not. If you're a kind of person who gets the most, like you, who gets the most out of finishing a little project, going, yes, I've done that, and moving on to the next thing and building up momentum, then do it. That's how you should do it. And if you don't like batch painting at all and you much prefer to do one model at a time, and that's how, you get almost 10 finishes for a squad of 10 Marines, do that.
Yeah.
You have to know your hobby. You have to know who you are and how you do it. And you shouldn't, I think in some ways, listen to what people say and take people's advice on board, but don't let that be like the golden holy grail of hobby. There isn't one. Your hobby's yours. Your hobby is yours. It's no one else's.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't really be dictated by that. It's the same as like somebody reading The Rock's fitness plan and going, I'm going to do The Rock's fitness plan, and then dying in a heap 3 days later because, the fact that he's got up at 4 o'clock and done 60 million press-ups before breakfast would kill most human beings. That's his life, and he lives it the way he does.
I could do it tomorrow.
Yeah. That only came in because I was reading about his ridiculous training program the other day. Impressive, man.
So, I've some interesting philosophical thoughts there. I liked that. It's a good chat. Good chat.
So what have you actually got done, Dan?
Well,
because you've actually done some awesome stuff.
I have. Well, I was actually going to finish. So I finished my War Shrine,
and that looks amazing. It's such a complicated model, and you've done it proud, man.
Well, thank you. And I must admit that was a real hobby buzz, because I bought that when Age of Sigmar came out, and I fully built it, all of it, with no sub-assemblies, because I just wanted to use it. And then I tried to paint it and it crushed me. So I've overcome that and I've finished it. And I used it in the game as well last night. And it was okay, but the best bit was it was huge.
It's a real centerpiece.
Yeah,
isn't it?
real centerpiece. So really pleased to do that. And then the only other thing I've done is started my Aeronautica. So I built it all. That wasn't in my hobby pledge plan, but that's fine because they're awesome. And you can go zoom. But that's why I mentioned about chipping, because I've started with the orcs. I have got one here. You probably can't really see it, but
yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, flying across the screen. And I used chipping fluid across a miniature for the first time.
Because you're normally very specific with it.
Yeah, so in the past I've just used it on specific pieces. Usually where I put a line on to make something look cool. But with these, I sprayed them up with, Mornfang brown, and then spots of Scrag brown, and then spots of Trollslayer orange. And then varnished them. And then with gloss varnish, two thinnish coats. But then I went in and I sprayed them over with Tamiya, Sky Grey or something like that. And then, came up to the Tamiya white and to do some like pre-shade work.
All right. Yeah. I wondered where you were going with that, but yeah.
And then Tamiya flat yellow.
Do you want to mention that you put the chipping fluid on after you'd done the gloss varnish?
Did I not say that?
No, because that's an important point, Dan.
It is. It's a key. It's a key part of chipping. It is a key part. No, this is my like bake off. This is all to do with the bake off. Because in the technical challenge, they don't give them all the info, do they? They just go like bake it. They don't tell them how long. So it's exactly like that. So you just got to work it out. I'll be Prue and you can be Paul.
Paul? What, really?
Yeah, why not? It's that or Noel. Or Sandy. Anyway, it's
Can
not
I be Mary
Bake-Off.
Berry?
Yeah. What was we even saying? So yeah, put the chipping fluid on before you then do the next bit and get the colour on. So when the colour's on, and then just put some water over the model. And then what I did is I got a toothbrush and just went back and forth on it to kind of get, because it would be sort of directional weathering on a plane.
Mm.
And I was absolutely chuffed, and it was fast as well. And then you have to seal it again when you're happy and you're done with gloss varnish, because otherwise just the damp, your fingers will take the paint off.
Yeah.
Off the chipping fluid. If people are particularly interested, there is a high quality production video on YouTube, in which these models feature. There is a strange posh fellow on there. But yeah, it is worth checking out.
Wearing a funny hat and talking Cornish.
And speaking in a funny way. But yeah, if you check out the 2P's YouTube channel, that video's on there, and those guys are in it. If you can put up with getting through the initial opening randomness, there is a bit about them in there. I'm
just in to see if anyone who listens to our hobby desk and likes it. We'd quite like some feedback on whether or not it would be worth us doing sort of how-to videos on stuff, because I know the market's kind of saturated with them. But if people think that it'd be worth doing, it might be something that we could cobble together.
I've done a how to talk like a toff. Serious.
How to fail.
You have to start with a what-o. What-o? Those damnable orcs need a bloody good thrashing. That's how you do it.
Right.
But of course, by the end, it's like, what-o? Those bloody orcs? What are they doing of? Gazbag, where are you to? So, after it was too serious at the beginning, wasn't it? It was all that philosophical thinking and like reflection. So by the end, it's silly voices.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Well, on that note,
so we should recap. Chipping, put the colour you want to show under the chipping, gloss varnish, your chipping fluid, the colour you want on top, then put it with water and gently rub off the top coat of paint, and then seal it with a varnish. Preferably gloss varnish, and then matte afterwards. That's the process.
It's a good job you're here.
Remember the chipping fluid.
Otherwise you could be there with the brush for a while.
Nothing will happen. One thing I will say is you don't need to be rough with the brushing. It will come off. You just be gentle, because you can very easily just batter it right down to the undercoat.
Yes. Very true.
Chipping fluid or not, gloss varnish, whatever, won't make any difference if you're attacking it with a heavy brush.
No. Indeed. Okay, so I think with your excellent summary there, and actually bringing something useful to the segment, unfortunately 50% of people won't hear it because they'll have given up by the time I'm talking in a stupid voice. We shall now head into the grim darkness of the far future, and the galaxy of war. Okay, welcome to the grim darkness of the far future. Not as dark as the coffee that I am planning to drink to stay awake. That is very, very dark. Yeah, Ben, Space Marines. Sorry. And that is why...
It's like the worst intro ever.
Come on. When you create awesome intros like I do, every now and then you've got to knock something down so people lower the benchmark a bit. Right,
okay. So, 40k. Well, not just 40k.
No, the grim darkness of the far future.
The far future, yeah. So what are we going to talk about first?
Well, what we were thinking we would talk about in the segment is the Iron Hands and the Raven Guard, because those are the guys that they've got codex supplements. They're the next two to get them, and a couple of chapters which actually are a bit more fringe chapter, I suppose. Really getting a bit of love in the form of models.
Especially the Iron Hands. Not really been a great deal for them. There's an upgrade pack that used to float around a little bit, with some bionics in, but I can't think of a character they've ever had. You could specifically say that's Iron Hands. Other than Ferrus Manus, of course.
Yeah.
So,
but he hasn't got a head, so
nearly headless Ferrus.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you want to start off with the? So, I'm not going to lie. Like, I know a fair bit about Space Marines, but you are a Space Marine man, so you need to be keeping everyone enthralled, despite my despite my efforts with my intro, and my coffee. It's all down to you, my son.
So the Iron Hands have got themselves their new
Iron Father
called Furious, and he is Mal. I can never work out how to pronounce this stuff. So Malkarn with 2 A's, Furious, and he is boss, isn't he? He's such a nice model. He's half tech priest, half Primaris captain. He's got
a heavy bolter on a pintle arm on his shoulder. And it's really good. It's not like a rubbish heavy. It's not like a normal heavy bolter.
No.
Yeah. So I quite like him because he's got a bit of passion. That's what it says. So a lot of the Iron Hands are quite divorced from mankind and their humanity. He is described as still having that kind of burning passion inside, which I really like.
I was always pretty indifferent about the Iron Hands, really, until the Fenris Sector books.
Oh yeah,
and then I took a strong disliking to them. I did, and
is that
and then
because
it was
they outperformed the Space Wolves?
Not at all. It's because they were incredibly arrogant, incredibly unhuman, and very, very, binary.
Yeah. But I thought yeah, okay.
And I followed that up by reading the short story, the Horus Heresy one, where they're in the desert with the human Imperial Guard trying to keep up with them. And I just didn't like their attitude then either. I'm a kind of Salamander Space Wolves guy, where humans are everything to them. They're the whole point of their existence. They're still in touch with that kind of origin and what their role is, whereas Iron Hands just barely even recognise what a human is anymore. They just kind of get in the way as far as they're concerned. So they're not a chapter for me. However, I do like the aesthetic a lot. The deep black, iron, lots of bionics. I think that could work really, really well. But it's not a chapter I would go for. But then that's half the thing, isn't it, about 40k or any hobby that you play? You play the chapter that catches your imagination, not just the way it looks, but the background. Often it's a story or a passage or something that catches your eye.
I guess in their defence, and I agree with you. They don't appeal to me personally, which is not a surprise because the chapters that do are the Ultramarines and even more so the Salamanders. And the Salamanders are like the polar opposite.
Yeah, they are. Completely the polar opposite,
So, but in truth, these guys lost their Primarch because of the weakness of emotion, essentially. And the fact that Horus was, became, Ben, help me with my words. I can't think, what's the word?
Warmaster, heretic, evil scumbag, Mark 1.
Jealous is what I'm trying to say. And so you can see where they come from. But I do like the character. There's a cool little excerpt in the article on the community site, and it says, it It is as Master of the Forge Malcolm Phyros says, a Titan is a mighty weapon of the Omnissiah, but without the fires of its reactor, it is but cold, dead metal. And I really liked that. I thought that was cool. So I think he's a dude. He oversees the severing of the hand as well. Did you read that?
Yeah.
So he cuts off hands with his axe.
Yeah, I mean, let's to clarify that for people who don't know anything about the Iron Hands, is as far as an Iron Hand is concerned, the flesh is weak. I mean, that is literally their saying. And when they are inducted into the Iron Hands, they have their hand literally replaced with a bionic and become a literal Iron Hand in reverence of their chapter master, whose hands were molten metal, essentially, or covered in molten metal. That's kind of part of their initiation. His rules are disgusting as well, Dan. I mean, absolutely awesome for holding down a battle line. He increases the Iron Hands, models in friendly Iron Hands units, have a 5+ invulnerable save while their unit is within 6 inches of him. 5+. And, their ballistic skill is increased to 2+ if they're within 3 inches of him. So if you put him in a unit, you could anchor the line like a boss, really, couldn't you? Especially with his own gun.
He can own, with the rights of tempering, which is the 5 invulnerable, that affects all units within 6. The other one, the Signum Array, is just 1.
Yeah.
Still ace, don't get me wrong, especially when you consider that if you then have, is it the chapter master? Is it the captain that lets you reroll 1s to hit?
Yeah, well, if he's got those rules, then it's gonna stack up and become pretty insane.
I don't know if he has those rules, but there may be
I should imagine he would do, because well, no, he won't have the captain rules. He will have the chapter master rules, won't he? Is he the chapter master?
No, he's the master of the forge. He's their like chief tech marine dude.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, I see. Yeah. Yeah,
so he's cool and a lovely model. And another awesome upgrade pack with 2 of the sprues and transfers.
Yeah, very good, isn't it? Really happy to see the transfers and everyone.
It's excellent, and I think it is going to be very difficult when they do salamanders to leave them on the shelf. Because, I think they're awesome. So yeah, that's the Iron's Hands. Or a brief overview of the Iron Hands. So, Raven Guard then. So again, another chapter you don't see loads of.
No, and I really enjoyed Deliverance Lost. Really, really enjoyed it. And the short story that went alongside it, where Korax is running around with a heavy bolter like a gangster.
Yeah, that was an audiobook, wasn't it?
It was originally an audiobook, but yeah, I think because I read it now.
That was one of the first audiobooks I listened to, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I thought Deliverance Lost was a very sad book. It was one of those books where it built you up with so much hope and then just crushed you right at the end. You know, it had this idea that they were going to come back from the dead. They were going to rebuild their chapter with this new technology. They were going to go out there and they sort of perfected the gene seed as well a little bit, hadn't they? They'd messed around with that a little bit. And then they were going to go off and sort of become like the avenging angels of the heresy, as it were. The ones coming in to save everyone's in dire situations, but it never ended up being because of the filthy Alpha Legion and their inability to leave to fight fairly.
Yeah.
But it's a good book, a really good book, and I really like the Raven Guard. I like their aesthetic. I like the way they fight. I've always liked Strike's model, and I really like the new one too. One of those chapters where I could very easily be conned into playing them because they're black and easy to paint, and well, not necessarily easy, but you could make them easy to paint. But
We'll edit that pause out then.
You just sat looking at me.
Yeah, well, I thought you were still talking about something. So you're done then. Great. So other things for 40k then. So Aeronautica Imperialis.
Yeah, I picked up my box yesterday, actually.
Yeah, good. And have you opened it yet?
I have, yeah.
Initial feelings?
Bit light on the ground.
What, of stuff?
Mm.
It's only £55, mind.
Yeah, but... Yeah, I get it's only £55, and model-wise, it probably does make that money up, but it wouldn't have hurt, for example, to have put some of the unit cards in there.
Yeah, that's a big thing that's come out. I don't really understand why they haven't.
No, I don't either.
Well, no, I do. I think realistically they've gone, right, we want something with a price point that of £55 or down around there. And then they've looked at the component costs and they've worked out the markup they need to make, and they haven't been able to afford to put them in. Is the only thing I can think, because it doesn't make any sense from any other point of view. I'm not even sure it makes sense from that point of view, because actually they're a really key part. Yeah, I liken it back to that exciting old game of Drop Zone Commander, where Dan and I really wanted to get into Drop Zone Commander, but we had to flick back and forth through the darn rules to look at what different units did so much, we just gave up. We actually gave up. So, same thing here. If you aren't going to buy the cards, you're going to want to photocopy the unit stats out of the rulebook for definite. I mean, the cards aren't. I suppose the other frustrating thing as well is if you buy the pack of cards, you get loads of cards. So you're paying for cards you probably aren't going to need to use necessarily, which is a shame. But I mean, the models are lovely and the box art is incredible. Like, I really love the box art. I've done all the bases today for my fighters, my fighter bombers. And I've put them on taller flight stands as well. So in the box you get flight stands, don't you, with little ball joints on, but I just felt they were a bit low. So going back to the box again then. So Gaming Mat is in there, rather than the cardboard one.
I think that's fine. I was okay with that. That's fine.
Yeah, I must admit I wasn't too bothered. That was in there.
The dice.
Were in there.
A sheet of tokens.
Yeah, tokens. I'm glad you mentioned the tokens. So this, I don't get it. You got that sheet of tokens in there, right? And it's made out of proper card stock.
Yeah.
Yeah. The sheets of tokens, the extra sheets that you buy, which is like, I think it's £7.50, they're not made of that card stock. They're made of a really thin card stock. So I ordered them, and you get 5 sheets of them, and they're this like thin. They're still card, but they're like really, really thin, and I don't get it, because what you end up with is a lower quality item and flipping loads of them. Like, it is mental. I've got enough. I could have an Air Armada. I've got so many tokens. So I just don't get the decision making process on that, unless I wonder if it's got something to do with, because you know how we've seen products for Titanicus disappearing.
Yeah,
and I think because they're bringing in like buying like masses, loads of them, and having them printed, and then not doing it again. Maybe it's about saturating people so they've got so many tokens. That's still not going to help people in the future. But yeah, essentially, a bit of a shame. I thought I was a bit like, what is this?
Well, I suppose the book is fine. It's got the rules in, but it doesn't have any background really at all. I mean, one page of colour schemes for each of the different things wouldn't have hurt. And I suppose my thought when I opened it was this worth it, or would it have just been better to buy the bits separately?
Yeah,
because if you bought like,
I think it still does work out, because basically each different type of plane is £25.
Yeah, but it's £25 for 4 Thunderbolt fighters for a start.
Is it? Yeah.
So it's £12 for that. So what I'm getting at is, would it have not been? For me, I would have seriously have thought about buying Rin's World, which has got the rules in it, and the models separately, and the board, and it'd be a bit more expensive. But I don't know. I don't know whether it's it's the first time I've opened a box set and thought, is this actually good value, or is it? I don't know. I think it probably is. When I added it all up, you are getting more models. I mean, there's £55. There's £25 for 2 Marauder bombers and £25 for the 2 Orc bombers, isn't it? So
yeah.
So yeah, you are saving money, but I don't know. There feels like there's some bits missing out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the unit cards and I don't know. I think the unit cards really frustrated me.
Mm. So,
and one other thing is, and I don't normally do this, but what is it with individually wrapping each base in a plastic wrapper and then putting all of those individual bases in a further plastic wrapper, so you end up with like so much plastic wrapping that it's a bit daft.
Yeah.
And not at all environmentally friendly. It's just like, just stick them all in one bag, guys. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes. I unfortunately I lose track of what I've spoken about 2 days ago.
Previously. Yeah.
But I thought I was very surprised at the lack of, like you said, the lack of pictures of markings and painting guides. Very surprised.
Yeah.
Because it's a game that for many people won't have ever played anything like this, or have had planes or fighters or bombers or anything like that to have any reference of what to do.
I mean, I have got a fairly substantial book collection, and
yes,
and I'm not joking. I have looked through quite a few, and I cannot find one that has the the markings in.
It was all the Imperial armours, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I'm not sure if I've got the volume. No, I'm not sure. I don't have the Imperial one, but I mean, it's probably in there. But and all of those, so that artwork is done. Yeah. An extra 2-page spread with like, these are some markings of some. You just get the artwork that they've done from Imperial Armour and stick it in there. I think that's missing for me, because I can't even find it online. Like a resource of lots of different markings for. Have you got Rin's World? Because is it in there? Because that would be the next place of the book.
Yeah, I have got it, and there's not a loads in there.
Oh, it's just disappointing. And it's not often I say that, but it's disappointing. But the game as a whole, the box set, the game, everything, I'm pretty chuffed with it. The models are superb.
Oh yeah, the models are stunning.
But there are things in there which I think I'm not really sure why.
Yeah,
and I think that's a frustrating feeling.
Yeah, it is odd. It is odd, but we shall see what the future holds. For it.
Yeah, you have a whole book for like £30 full of Imperial markings, and I'm. Be like, really?
Oh, it would be like, wouldn't it be good though if they did one like, do you remember the armies of the Empire and armies of the Skaven and armies of the High Elves?
Yeah, I got them.
That's what you want. That's what you want. Just like that. Yeah. What has been cool though, I've been listening to Double Eagle.
Such a good book.
And I've picked up Wings of Glory, to read while I'm on holiday, which is loads of short stories. Interestingly, and completely not connected in any way to 40k, is that Audible have got the new Gotrek book. So that's good. Just throw that out there. Just popped into my head. Yeah, so it's been good to go back and read those. I've not played it yet.
I had a brief look at the rules, and I'm quite pleasantly surprised by how simple they look.
Yeah. Well, I've done all the orc planes apart from like the markings, so hopefully Ben Chambers will do his Imperial planes first, and then we'll be able to.
I was going to go for you know, like the Pacific Theatre. When radar was introduced, the American Air Force went from painting their airplanes in very specific ways to just leaving them bare aluminium.
Yes.
With like streaks on. I was going to do that actually. I've been looking at pictures because there was nothing else to, so I was going to do that because I quite like the idea of that.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to, well, I think I'm going to go with a sort of a brown colour for my Thunderbolts and stuff because I want it to match my gaming table.
Yeah. I mean, one of the interesting things about the reason why the American Air Force and the Royal Air Force, but the American Air Force was the article I was reading about. They went to that brushed aluminium is because typically they paint their planes as camouflage. But with the advent of radar, there was absolutely no need to do that. But then also it was talking about how detrimental the paint was to the plane. So it increased the drag because it was matte rather than shiny. And added weight onto the aeroplane. And I was like, well, actually, how much weight it's probably an extra tin or two of paint. It probably is quite a lot of paint, isn't it? Mm. It's probably a few kilograms at least. So I found that really interesting. And across the whole Thunderbolt.
Oh yeah. But I think what's quite interesting with 40k though, the madness of it, is that it's like the far future, but they still have proper dogfights. So I'm listening to Double Eagle, and it's talking about Thunderbolt just like being up at like 6,000 feet, and then stooping and diving on Hell Talons. And actually, the Thunderbolts being camouflaged has a benefit because they're not like, especially at this point in the book, they haven't got any missiles left for getting locks and stuff. So it's all cannons and hard rounds and las cannons. And also they're hunkered down in an FSB, a forward surveillance base. Or whatever.
So you want them camouflaged on the floor?
Yeah, so they're camouflaged, and it talks about them being painted in like a green wash. So they're camouflaged in the trees.
What's also interesting is that an orc would almost certainly not have radar. Yeah, so if he can't see it, it's a painting in camouflage colours, it's probably really useful because if he can't see it, then
yeah. It's that's 40k though, isn't it? That's the great thing about 40k. Okay, cool. So an interesting 40k segment this time round, I think mainly because whilst we have some interest in the Iron Hands and the Raven Guard, they're not armies that we're active in. And we're probably a bit 50-50 with Aeronautica at the moment. We've got a real desire to be excited, really impressed by certain elements of it, but a bit unsure about other elements. So
I think that's a really fair summary.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah, I feel like my last feeling is I feel like having bought the box set that I need to buy the extras. And I have never felt that before. If I bought Warcry, I would not feel the need to buy any of the extras. If I bought Blackstone Fortress, I would not feel the need to buy any of the extras. I'd want to, but they would not be necessary.
Yeah.
But with this one, I feel like there is stuff that I need to buy to make this game work in the way that I would want it to, like the unit cards. And that is a really frustrating feeling. Yeah. And that's, I think, my last thought on it.
Okay. I think my last thing not to do with Aeronautica is something very strange did happen. So I ordered Aeronautica from one place, and the order didn't turn up in time for the release day. So I went into Games Workshop and bought it, because I had to have it on release day, you know, these things. You just have to have them. And so then I went to the other place with the intention of returning the copy that I'd pre-ordered. And I went in, and instead of leaving with the money, I left with a copy of Apocalypse. Very strange how these things happen.
Did it mug you?
Yeah, it mugged me
you and climbed in your case.
Mugged me and left me with a box of Apocalypse. Weeping. So, watch this space. I haven't opened it. I've told myself I'm not allowed to open it till I've got 300 power painted for my Chaos, which is the recommended size. That's a lot more to do.
So you won't be opening it for
this year?
This year?
I wouldn't have thought so. Not to get to 300 power.
There'll be the next version of Apocalypse out by now.
I know, I did think that. But there we are. Well, although the interesting thing, the good thing, is because it's a completely self-contained game, it's a totally new rule set. It doesn't actually matter if they bring out another one. This will still be a valid game.
That is a really good point. I had not thought of that, and that's a really good point.
And I'm very excited to.
Except there won't be rules for the newer models.
No, but let's see.
People will always make rules.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If the system is popular, there will always be somewhere on the internet making their own data cards.
Excellent. Well, I think I'm kind of overcome with excitement for our upcoming special guest. So I think we'll call it a day of journeying around the grim darkness of the far future. And we'll go through the realm gate, like through the looking glass or whatever.
It's like the Crystal Maze.
Yeah, like the Crystal Maze. It is actually, that is why Age of Sigmar is so awesome, because it is just like the Crystal Maze. You just wander around a bit, go to a different door, different kind of theme.
So you get people standing around the table shouting at you to do stuff, and stand there confused and incapable of moving.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, let's go to the Mortal Realms.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Mortal Realms. We're joined by Dan Wosley, who is the one of the page managers for the Wanderers page on Facebook, prolific Wanderers player who's just had his army crushed by Games Workshop, never to be returned. Despite years of dauntless support of the Wanderers and refusal to take anything other than a Wanderer in his army, it's a bit of a moment for him. So we're going to have a chat with him about that. He's only just found that out, so he might not have much to say on it, really. Apart from to just cry.
Are you going to cry?
I might cry.
Yeah, okay, that's all right. I think we do need to clear up. So this is 9-inch Dan, as previously introduced. It's not. It's. I think a few people were slightly disturbed and thinking
it's
that
not
was a rude reference, but he's in fact actually just a gnome. And is only 9 inches high. So, just to clear that up.
Makes rolling dice difficult.
It does make rolling dice difficult, yes. Yes, it does. But you can just lie down and measure the distance your models must be from the enemy when they appear.
And then, when I try to charge, not roll it.
Yeah, then not get the 9-inch charge.
Which is the real reason why it's not 9-inch charge.
Yeah, and if you hear a slight scuffle break out when we are talking about the Wanderers having fallen to the axe of Games Workshop.
Yeah, just keep mentioning it, it's fine.
Carry on. That is in no way connected with the fact that someone very near to here may have given feedback that the Wanderers were overpowered. Sorry, Ben, you're supposed to be leading on this, and I'm just started chatting. That's about normal.
No. So we've also got a few other things to talk about. We've got Gotrek's Warcradle. We've got a few new releases for the upcoming Beastgrave, and just having a general look forward to see what's coming out in Age of Sigmar, really, because there's a few things that we know are coming out soon, and would like to sort of have a ponder about. And there's a few more releases for the Tomb Kings #not Tomb Kings, who I never remember the name of. Bone Construct
Bone
people.
Is that what they are?
Yeah,
Ossiarch Bone Reapers, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, where should we start,
I think
guys?
what would be cool is to start with... Dan has been on the podcast a couple of times before, I think, when we've done the group.
Yeah, has.
We always end up
chats.
recording when we go to like Warhammer Fest or something.
That's
it's
right,
the end
yeah.
of a long day and we've all had some beers and then I'm just laying on the bed ready to go to sleep and you're like, right.
Let's do a podcast. Yeah, well, we know what our listeners like. So, first things first, really, is a brief introduction to you, your hobby. Where did you start?
I started collecting... Oh, goodness me. I want to say 20 years ago.
It must have been about that.
About 20 years ago. End of 5th edition fantasy.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. Collected Wood Elves.
Yeah.
Collected Wood Elves all the way through, all the way up till 8th edition.
Yeah.
Got rid of them.
Was it Mike McVie's Wood Elves that got you into them?
Who's he?
So he did a wonderful diorama of the Wood Elves bursting out the forest and doing over a necromancer.
You have seen that one.
Is it the one in Warhammer World?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's lovely. I remember seeing that in Warhammer Wolf, actually. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of theme was like a
it wasn't him that got
that
you
kind
into
of theme was like a big part of what I really enjoyed about them, like the ambush warfare and, like you said, like bursting out of places and just being like a glass hammer. I really enjoyed that, like kind of all or nothing. And then when I did collect Lizardmen briefly in 8th edition, but then at the end of 8th edition, when Age of Sigmar came out, I decided I'd have a clean break and start something brand new. And I sold my army on eBay, and then I instantly regretted it and bought it all back and started again with Wanderers. And then I just got back up to like a good kind of 3,000 points. You know, it gives me a bit of flexibility, take what I want. And now they don't sell them anymore, and they're not going to be in the next edition, it looks like.
Well, some of them are still available, just for clarity. So the Eternal Guard are, aren't they?
Yeah, actually, to be fair, for what I just said, a lot are going to be still available. It's just, so the Wanderers were carrying quite a lot of metal heroes, and the Glade Guard were quite old and quite static looking. They don't quite fit the aesthetic, and I think they're trying to kind of remove a lot of those older kits.
And they're OP.
Yeah, and they're OP, which doesn't help.
I think if I was going to go for Glade Guard, personally now, I would probably go for the Wood Elves from Lord of the Rings, actually.
A lot of people do, actually. They just got a lot nicer poses.
They're just nicer.
Yeah, the only thing about them is that in Age of Sigmar they look a bit spindly because of the scale.
Yeah.
But no, I love Wanderers, and they are still a faction. They are still going forward. I'm really excited to see what happens with them in the Cities of Sigmar book. So my plan is that with the Wanderers that I have, I will use them when the Cities book comes out and use them as a living city army.
Like a woodland city.
Yeah, so there was one in the Firestorm campaign that was the living city, and it's always Stormcast, and then it was Wanderers and Sylvaneth. I can't remember what else. But
that'd be quite cool for you to expand into the Stormcast a little bit.
Yeah,
well.
and they had a similar play style to the Wanderers in that the Living City kind of are ambushy, so you deploy a lot off the board and then come on a board edge in your movement phase. And there are Stormcast that kind of do the same sort of thing. There's the Vanguard wing.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it'd be cool to reunite them with the Sylvaneth, and then I don't know, maybe in the future we'll see what happens with Canothi for Beastgrave. They seem to fit that aesthetic as well. There's still like a lot of directions they can go in, places they can ally with. Although they did get nerfed, I don't think they're quite dead yet.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that they are a faction that isn't gone like the Tomb Kings are gone, and the Bretonnians are gone. There are still elements of them. The race is, the aesthetic is still there. It's still in in some of the miniatures. It's still in some of the background. So I don't think that woodland elves are gone by any stretch of the imagination.
And there's a real opportunity to see what that looks like in the mortal realms and in a city and in amongst all the other races and how they integrate into that. And I think that would be really cool. And there'll be lots of different takes. So, there are lots, how do they look in the realm of fire and what happens when they come across dwarves, things that, races that they would sort of traditionally not have liked, and how do they get on with that and things. I think it's quite interesting to explore.
I think you've taken it really well, Dan. I've got to be honest. I mean, I think it's fair to say I took the removal of the high elves badly.
No.
I think you've done it.
So it just flashbacks to the conversation we had the morning that it happened.
Well, yeah. In fairness, you weren't all that positive either at that time, but
no,
I think you've done a really good job of seeing the positive side of it. I think that's really cool, and I really hope that, from my own personal opinion or position, that the wood elves and the high elves, neither of them have gone. They're just not prominent armies anymore, and I hope to see that flourish into something in the future. But just fingers crossed. I think you can never say never with Games Workshop at the moment.
No, and it was quite good. Opinion. I mean, you adapted really well when Age of Sigmar came out from fantasy, because you'd only played fantasy, hadn't you? And then, but we just jumped straight on board, and we were in Warhammer World the day after it came out with our starter box sets playing. I
think you've got to do that. I think there's an element of you've just got to go all in and embrace it, or you're not going, or it becomes a negative thing, and then that's difficult to get over sometimes, isn't it?
I do like, though, that you've included elements. I love your Celestial Hurricanum you made, with the stone and the rocks floating around it and things.
Yeah,
and I really like that, because I've said before, I really like the idea of taking the rules for something, but then creating your own aesthetically working model.
So I do already have a mixed order army, which I think is what the city will look like, hopefully, depending on what the rules allow you. And also, I think there's going to be new battalions and things that I might be tempted to take. But I have already kind of started to shift that way. I was already playing or dabbling with mixed order, for the last year or so. We played a mixed order game the other day. Mm-hmm. So I'm still waiting for the book to come out, but I think I'm kind of as prepared as I can be at the moment to see what happens next.
Yeah, you've got a good range of things. I love your witch elves. Aesthetically, they're just awesome.
They look like poison ivy.
They do look like poison ivy.
I tried to do it in sort of green and orange, and then they all just came out looking like poison ivy.
Yeah, but that's fine. They look ace. Yeah.
It's actually quite exciting looking forward, isn't it, when you think about what we've got coming up for the rest of the year. The Cities of Sigmar, the Orc Warbands, or whatever they named it. And you've got the new Bone Construct people, whose name continues to evade me. Tomb Kings, not Tomb Kings. And there feels like there's a lot to cram in now.
It does, doesn't it? Because it's only
September. It's October, November, December, So it's an exciting couple of months for Age of Sigmar, I think. Particularly as two of those books, the Orc one is mashing two forces together, and the Cities of Sigmar are mashing loads together. It's gonna change the balance of everything. How the sort of armies we're seeing, the sort of unit choices that are being made, how they're put together. I think it's going to be quite a period of change for Age of Sigmar.
I think it's really exciting in that there's been a lot of little tiny factions that are kind of left by the wayside that you couldn't really do an army of, that people are still quite passionate about. And put these umbrella books where they bring in factions. This is the kind of tidying up that we've wanted in Age of Sigmar for a long time, that people have been saying that they've wanted for a long time. And I think Games Workshop have been a little bit slow to react to that. There's kind of been pushing Stormcast and pushing their new armies, but then people already have collections or are interested in the other factions that they already did, were a little bit left behind,
absolutely.
and now there's a big kind of catching up, and it's gonna. I think when that's finished, it's gonna feel like the complete game that it always should have been.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
with these 2 books come in? No, 3, because you got the ogre one as well, haven't we?
Well, ogre one is speculated, but we
And
have an
Bone
ogre
Reaper's
model.
Yeah, we got the
We
officer
don't-
up. But what I was going to say is, will that now mean, is there many models left that aren't in a battle tome once those come out?
Dark
I don't
Elves.
think there is, Dan.
But Dark Elf's going to be in the cities, but
Yeah.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about them is that nothing got culled at all. So it makes me think there might be some kind of plan for them.
yeah.
It's outrageous, isn't it? Killing off all the high elves and keeping
So
the
I
dark
forgot there's a
elves.
little bit of salt just in that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering if that ogre guy could be one of 2 things, really. It could be a warband for Beastgrave. We don't know. Or it could be this, the precursor to a whole new ogre's book. Given that basically every time they bring out a new Underworlds, they're kind of changing the goalposts of what can be in it. I mean, you had Mollog in the last one. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that you could have an ogre tyrant.
No, definitely not.
And this one seems to be more about cavalry. So we've got the Kurnothi, and you've got now the Goblin Wolf Riders, which kind of segues us on nicely to Beastgrave, doesn't it? So we were just having a look at the Beastgrave releases, Dan and I. It's very complicated that there's 2 Dans. So Dan Wosley and I were just looking at Beastgrave.
I was looking at the release through the eyes of Dan Jolly. I was looking at the set that comes with the box that's got all the spaces already for your cards and all already for your army, and it's all just organised and neat and tidy. And I was just thinking, I know someone who will absolutely love this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a big change that's happened. The details of I'm not entirely sure, but I'm really positive about it. So effectively, the old cards, and I don't know up until which point, but the old cards, the sort of basic set of cards, are no longer going to be valid. Beastgrave's basic cards are the ones that are going to be valid.
And Nightfall.
And then, are they including Nightfall as well, are they?
It's the most recent 2 seasons.
Well, see, I think that that's really good. And my reason is that if you were to get into Underworlds, and we spoke about this actually when the box set first came out, that there will come a point in the future where all of these legacy cards will be an absolute nightmare to get hold of. Not only to get hold of them, but to the cost of purchasing them all, even if Games Workshop said, oh, here they all are. We're already kind of at that point, but imagine it in 2 years' time when there's another 2 box sets. So I think for a beginner, someone who's just getting into Underworlds, being able to say, oh, okay, well, I can buy the most recent box set, and they'll probably release the other ones in a deck or something, and I'm done.
So, sorry, I just wanted to check exactly. So basically, universal cards from season 1 will no longer be valid once Beastgrave is out, but faction-specific cards will be.
Yes,
so that you keep the play styles. And yeah, like you, I think it's excellent. The only problem with it is it starts to overcome the one thing that's stopping me starting collecting up Underworlds.
Yeah.
Because that is the barrier, has been the barrier. But actually what this does is, well, it's brilliant. Because it means that if you are specifically thinking, right, well, I'm really liking Stormcast, your back catalogue only needs to include all of the Stormcast warbands, which if you like Stormcast, you're probably going to want anyway. Because you don't need to buy things from Season 1 to get hold of the Universal cards. That being said, you still need a flipping lot if you want them all, don't you? Because 2 seasons were.
Yeah, I've heard that the warbands from the first box are going as well, but I'm not sure.
No.
Because has that been clarified?
Well, that's not what it says here. Not what it says on the
Well,
website.
then that's not true then. So, you're going to end up with lots of different warbands as options, and but only needing to buy the most recent core set. And I think as a beginner, that's exactly what we needed to hear, because this is an evolving situation, and it's exactly how every other card game works. That, you know, there comes a point where old stuff is just not valid anymore, or if it's not valid, it's just so old it's not useful.
I still think it's a lot, mind, because it's not a case of just buying the most recent core set, because any universal card from any of the warbands from the current season and the previous season are valid. So
yeah,
if you wanted, I believe, and I might be wrong because I don't play Underworlds and fully get it, but my understanding therefore would be that if you wanted to be able to access every single universal card that was currently playable, you would need to purchase 16 warbands.
I think what I would encourage a person who was just getting into it to do would be to build their deck digitally and then select the warbands that they're in and purchase them specifically.
Yeah.
Why can't you buy a booster pack in your local gaming club or at your newsagents?
I don't think you can.
Yeah, I don't know why you can't, though. It just seems like it would be an idea.
Well, it's an evolving thing, and I think the cool thing about Underworlds is they are taking feedback, and it does keep evolving and changing, so that it might well be something that you see in the future, Dan.
But goblins on wolves, dude.
Goblins on wolves, they are really something. The models are superb. They're everything that I wanted new Wolf Riders to be. I can't help but think they were Wolf Riders that were designed to come out as an actual Goblin unit, but then ended up being released as this. There's a little bit of me that hopes they're going to come back as a unit themselves.
So I wondered if it might be. I mean, I'd like that, but I did wonder if they might use the Shadespire setting, the Underworld setting, sorry, to explore or reintroduce things from the old world that with no intention of them moving into the Mortal Realms proper. And the only reason I'm saying that could work is because thus far, what I've read of the settings that Underworlds is set in, they are divorced in some way from the Mortal Realms, like cut off or trapped in time or what have you.
It also allows them to do that, what they've been able to do with Kill Team to one degree, but Blackstone Fortress primarily, explore units that there just isn't enough of them, maybe, to become an army, to become a valid list.
Like squig stalagmites.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not going to be a valid unit ever, is it? But there they are in Underworlds, and I think that's something that we might see. But regardless, there will be rules for them in Age of Sigmar. There will be a war scroll, so they will be in my Goblin army.
Yeah, they do look ace. They do look really good.
They look amazing. They're so dynamic. I love them.
Yeah, and what's great is they've managed to capture the look of the goblins from Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but do away with the things that were problematic about them, which is they weren't particularly dynamic and they were a bit odd shaped and stuff. But they've still got the feel of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm loving the terrain pieces.
Yes,
hugely impressed with them. They are fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
What I really like about them is their hexagonal pillars of stone coming out of hexagonal bases. That I just think is a really cool idea.
Yeah. There is one thing about the release that I am absolutely baffled by, is that they're selling the counters separately. I cannot fathom why they would have done that. They should have been in the box set, as far as I'm concerned. I can't see why they're being sold separately at all.
I wonder, because obviously this sort of harkens back to the conversation we were having in the 40k section with regards to Aeronautica, and I wonder if there's something in there about people not wanting to pay for stuff that they don't necessarily have to have.
Yeah, I can see that, and they talk about it in the article that you can use bits of gubbins or whatever.
But how much does a sheet of cardboard
coins
cost
or
an extra?
Well, yeah, indeed, I don't know. But then again, you look at Magic the Gathering and like 1/1 creatures and stuff like that. You know, people buy their own tokens and all sorts of those things.
Yeah, but I'm not really keen on that, to be honest. But the colour is horrendous.
The colour?
The orange, man. I don't know if it's just on the screen, but the colour is eye-watering.
I see what you mean now about the hexagonal pillars.
Yeah, it looks like
the Giant's Causeway.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it?
It just fits just right. I really like that one that's over across 2 sections. That's that like skull and a bit of backbone and ribcage.
Yeah.
They're all good, really. The crystals bursting out of the ground are really cool as well.
Yeah.
I'd like them just because they're nice.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They are really nice, aren't they?
And as you move forward, you know, you have like a little collection of bits of scenery you can use on the other ones as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, thinking about the contents then, so the Kanothi, because you've obviously already mentioned them, what would you like to see? Because obviously we hope that they're going to move into Age of Sigmar.
What would I like to see come out of Kanothi for Age of Sigmar?
Yeah.
Orion,
yeah.
They all look like him. They're like little fawn people, and they're all like one of them, the guy who's the centaur.
Yeah.
His name is like a huntsman or something, and they're all about that. Like, I'm already going to buy them, and I'm going to paint them up as little Orions. They're all going to have green skin. They're going to look like Orion did in the old world. And then I hope that if that translates to the mortal realms, kind of what the Wood Elves were would have been revisited in that aspect of life will be the Sylvaneth, and that aspect of the hunt will be the Kanothi.
Mm.
And then they'll be kind of completely redone for Age of Sigmar, and then I'll just go nuts, basically.
Yeah, I'd love
get
to
as much
see.
as I can. But I mean, there have been there's the Avatar of Matlan, isn't there, for the Idoneth Deepkin? I'd love to see some kind of avatar of the Hunt or of Kurnoth that looks like Orion appear in the Mortal Realms. It would be incredible. And then I could ally with Tom, who's got some Sylvaneth, and he could be my Age of Sigmar wife with Alariel.
Yeah.
We could go to a doubles tournament.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'd love to see Orion like revisited in it with the same kind of to the power of type factor that Alariel had.
Mm-hmm. I think in the old world, Orion had a lot of presence, and there's a lot of scope to do that. I mean, I think what I'm thinking of is in my mind, if they do it, is something like the Magnus model without the wings.
Oh right, yes, yeah. Magnus the Red from 40k. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I quite like how they talk about silhouettes, don't they, when they're talking about design? But the silhouette of them is very dynamic and like forward moving. Whereas I've always found the Sylvaneth are quite planted. They're very big and rugged.
That's excellent.
They're not going anywhere.
No.
The only thing about them I'm not 100% keen on is the hair. Is a bit weird.
Mm.
You've got big sort of bouffants going on.
Wow, it's just a bit wild.
It's their wild hair flowing in the wind, Dan. It's
So are we going to
bits
get
of twigs sticking out?
Are you going to get the Beastgrave box then, or are you just going to wait and get the warband at the end? Because it will be a while, won't it?
I'm not sure at the moment. It depends on how much it costs and everything like that.
I'd
certainly be picking up the warband 100%. But I'd like to get into Underworld, to be honest.
So if we could split it, because I'd like the Beastman.
I think that the box set isn't very expensive.
And then if we split it, it's even less expensive.
Yeah, but then we only have one set of the rules.
But we only play around here anyway.
Well, that's true. This isn't good, is it?
Sold.
Sold. Sold to the
If
dance.
anyone didn't realise what just happened, that was Dan's entrance into Underworld.
Lightning just went off behind me. I think I just heard Harriet roll over and make a small squeak. Oh dear.
Joshua, it's basics fish fingers again for dinner.
Yeah.
Gotrek Gurnison.
Oh, I've just clicked off him. I had him up, didn't I, so we could look at his rules after I searched through everything.
He is a wrecking machine. Absolutely love it.
He's a bit rude, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do you think you'll see him a lot in competitive play?
No.
You say no, but I've been having a little look around, and there's an Ideneth Deepkin battalion that lets you take an ally with the Ideneth Deepkin rules. So even before we've looked at the rule scroll and gone through it, basically he can't teleport, and it's difficult to move him, and he's a dwarf and he's only got a 4-inch move. But the Deepkin in turn 2, they can run and charge. So that gets him where he needs to go. So in turn 1 you move him or run him, and then in turn 2 you can run and charge him, and then he's halfway across the table and he's just obliterating whatever you want, basically. He's very expensive though.
He could be one of those units that, in fairness, if he gets into combat, just looking at that article where he's wiping out greater demons, he's going to be a tough nut to crack, but I can see players just avoiding him.
Feeding him little units, like, oh, you are, Gotrek, have 10 skeletons.
Yeah, definitely. I think...
Yeah, just put him in a tar pit and run away
but
from
it's
him.
not about that, though, Ben. It's about rule of cool, isn't it? And he's the coolest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I will buy him and I will play him just because I love him. Absolutely. But I think the fact that they've made him match play does make me sort of want to work out how to beat him, basically.
Just don't fight him,
my match play army is Oryx. So I think I might just feed him a unit of hard boys and...
It's
and then leave him there.
Suppose the interesting thing though is, although you say, just ignore him, because Age of Sigmar is largely objective based.
If he's on an objective, then
Exactly.
you can't ignore him.
If he's on, he could essentially almost take an objective out of the game by being stood on it, or put it to you.
Mm.
So it becomes one that you don't need to worry about because you've got Gotrek sat on it, just ready to slay everything. Although. Yeah, I don't know, actually.
I know. It's number of models, isn't it? So, but the thing is, even if you had a massive horde going against Gotrek, you still favour Gotrek.
He wiped out a whole unit of grots in one go.
Yeah, but then what you could do is, if Gotrek sat on the objective...
You could be 3 inches away from him and still hold the objective. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but you could do that with 3 units of 10 models.
Mm.
And so he could go and kill 1 unit, but you still hold the objective. Then he'd go and kill another and still hold the objective. Do it that way. Yeah, but what would be cool is just to have Gotrek, build a cool piece of scenery, which was like a pass, and just have Ben's whole army come down the pass, and just have Gotrek stood in the middle of the pass.
I was just trying to get...
I am entirely
Just say there's a
game for
massive gale,
Yeah.
so like arrows can only shoot at like 12-inch range or something. Not that Ben would sit back and shoot him anyway, because that would be lame.
Dude, we have to do that in our November meetup.
We totally should, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll call it Gotrek's Alive. That's what we'll call the game.
Yeah, I'm well up for that.
Oh, I've got a game sorted for our November weekend away.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, I've kind of come up with like a backstory and stuff. And
sweet.
I'm ready to go with that. I'm just building some scenery for it.
You're building some scenery for it?
Yeah.
Sweet. That's ace.
Cool.
Right, it's going to be good. So I maybe we'll talk about it in November or something, but it's going to be a narrative game played across 3 realms with 3 simultaneous games going on. And they'll affect each other in some way.
Sweet.
That sounds amazing.
That does sound amazing. I love the idea. What scenery are you building for it?
Don't want to say.
Oh, this is sweet. You don't want to say.
Oh, it's going to be a
That's
surprise.
exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
But it is going to... The only thing I'll say about it is that it is going to be a little nod and a sort of last hurrah to the units that we have lost this year.
Oh. Well, that's very exciting. That is very exciting. I like that.
I like that. I'm pretty excited about that.
Me too. Might have to paint some more Age of Sigmar.
Good.
Damn it, in the last segment I was like, right, I'm going to be painting Apocalypse. And in this segment I've gone through Underworlds and back to Age of Sigmar again.
It doesn't matter what you say you're going to paint. You just get out some bloodletters and paint them, and that's it.
Yeah. That's fine.
Well, in fairness, you could use them for both. So
Yeah, that's true. They are multi. They're not so good for Aeronautica though.
Stick some wings on them.
You could actually. That would be fine actually, because you could just summon them in front of a plane, and then they'd go through the intakes, and it would crash, wouldn't it? Wouldn't even need to fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you say ground units aren't great in an air game, but what about that scene in Rocky where the tank and the helicopter collide?
Well,
Rocky,
and also,
not Rocky, what am I talking about? Rambo.
Yeah, and also there's the A-Team, where they fly the tank by firing its cannon and using the recoil to push the tank in the direction they want to go.
If you don't attach a Hawk widget to one of your tanks.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'll have to do now. That would be fantastic. That would be great. Okay, cool. So we covered Gotrek, we covered Beastgrave, which is out next weekend. Any more Mortal Perils to cover off? We played a game.
We did play a game.
We did play a game, didn't we? We played Places of Arcane Power.
Yeah, we did. And because Age of Sigmar takes too long to play at 2,000 points, it takes ages of Sigmar.
Yes.
We played 2,500 points to see how long we could stretch it out.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. we didn't get to turn 4, did we?
No, but that was because I conceded.
Yeah, I know that, but it was
Is
also
that what you
like...
were trying to say? Is that like a segue into...
No, but it was also because it was like 11:15, and we'd got to big at like 6:30.
Yeah.
What were we doing? It was good though. Those dudes with scythes...
The Kurnoth Hunters.
Kurnoth Hunters. Don't like them. Can't have them. Next year's survey. Overpowered. That's going in. The Kurnoth Hunters.
The only thing we haven't spoken about is the Bone Collector they revealed, didn't they, for Ossiarch Bone Reapers?
Yeah.
And I'm quite keen to talk about that sculpt.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that because he has a skeleton as a penis?
Exactly that. Because he has a boner.
Collecting up the bones. I think the model is an ace, but that is just weird, isn't it?
If you could create yourself out of bones, you wouldn't put that there. You wouldn't put a guy's face there. You would make some kind of, ridiculous monstrosity.
It would be pretty funny.
Well, maybe they've got a sense of humor. They are all grinning, aren't they? Insanely.
They are all grinning insanely. Maybe that's
just seen him over the horizon.
That's why they've got a big grin on. Maybe he didn't decide it. Maybe it's like one of the necromancer type guys made him like that as punishment, and that's why they're laughing at him.
Could you imagine? Because they are like, their souls bound to them, aren't they? So I wonder if they know if they're going into it, and he's drawn a short straw, and they're just like...
Right, everybody, who gets a face for a penis? Straw time.
Do you think that it's one soul, or do you think the guy that is the penis is another soul, and that is his punishment, that forever he has to be the penis that picks up the bones?
Well, I actually think that probably is the case.
I do too,
in the background, that's the thing, isn't it? They bind multiple souls.
It's such a shame because it's a cool idea that he's the guy that gets the bones that create the constructs, and I really like that idea. Just sorry.
Yeah. Might have to leave that bit
What
off.
children we are.
I just know as soon as I play someone who collects them, I'm just going to burst out laughing.
Yeah. What do you think of the Bone Reaper guys, apart from that guy?
I always say that I wait to see them in the flesh before I make a decision on the sculpts. Obviously, we don't know too much about the rules. I think the sculpts are interesting. They don't look like your kind of typical undead. I think, one thing that struck me is that they've all got noses, but if you're undead, obviously, like, your skeleton won't have a nose, but they've kind of built themselves to look more human, I suppose, but then also gone crazy with, like, 4 arms and things. They're just flipping mental.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I was a warrior, I think having an extra set of arms to do double the amount of damage might be something I would consider.
Oh yeah, they're built with that in mind, aren't they? So those 4-arm things, which again I'd like to see in the flesh, but I do love the fact that they've got 4 heads, but like they've got 1 head but with 4 faces, and they've got 4 souls.
Like those things from Transformers.
Yeah, and they've got 4 souls, and then depending on what fighting style they want, they switch souls.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I love that. And I was trying to tell Ben about this, and I've looked it up, and I can't bloody find it, but there's some kind of, I don't know if it's a computer game or a film, but there's like a stone golem monster, and they blow off its face with guns, and then its face like spins around, and it's got a new face, and it keeps fighting, and I cannot think where I've seen that, but that's the sort of thing it makes me think of. I love that idea.
What is it? For me, as a, go back to the sort of Wanderers and Wood Elves, it harks back to what Dryads were like in 5th edition, where they'd fight with different aspects, and they'd have different kind of seasons and things that they would fight in.
Yeah.
And War Dancers used to be a bit like that, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that kind of rule coming back into Age of Sigmar, because, you don't know what you're going to come up against. I think they have started to sort of drip that in, like the Namati Thralls.
Yeah.
Their weapon is good against individual models and monsters, but I think it's cooler in a way that they change their face and change their soul and then become some like new entity. I think that's just it's brilliant. You can always trust the background writers to come up with something awesome.
I think what is cool is that it depends on how the rule works in the game, but you could end up going up against a unit and having no idea what that unit is set to do. If you might put your infantry towards it thinking that it's set to do with monsters or vice versa, and then I think it adds a little bit of surprise into it.
You know what
too,
to do in that case, don't you, Ben? Shoot it.
Sit back and
shoot it dead.
But I'm an Iron Jaws player, Dan. I don't have that option. I have to run and hit it in the face.
But you're very good at doing that, so it's fine.
You could just stomp it to death 27 times.
Ideally.
Up with the foot of Gork.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
I hope that's back. With a lower casting level.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
At least you can have plenty of orcs.
Shall we round it off there then, chaps?
I think so.
And head our way over into the community.
Yes.
Well, thanks for joining us, Dan. It's been awesome having you on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, guys.
You are most welcome.
And
I'll try and put some pictures up on the Facebook page of our game and on the 2P's hobby forum of that game we played.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That would be cool.
Very good.
Yeah. For those of you who do follow us on social media, Dan has very kindly agreed to help us out with some of the posts on Age of Sigmar. If it's him, he'll identify himself, so you'll know it's him. But it's really awesome to have him along because, quite frankly, he understands the rules a lot better than either of us do. So.
You say that, and whilst in theory it is fine, but we do have an ongoing joke, don't we, that we've played Fantasy and Age of Sigmar for years and years and years, and yet the most basic things come up, and we're like, don't know. Just look in the book.
Well, 4 pages was too much to begin with, and now it's even longer.
I know.
What's going on?
It's madness.
They cut it back a bit.
Yeah. Goodness me. Anyway, with that in mind, let's head into the community. Hail, glorious community! What a band of fighter aces you are! I'm in the mood, dude. I'm in the Aeronautica mood. Guys, thank you for joining us in the community section of the 2P's. As ever, we will be shouting out some cool Instagram stuff, talking about the glorious hobby group, which is glorious because of you guys, doing a bit of a focus on some events. Yeah, it is. Yeah, almost as glorious as Ben's beard, that is. Almost. Yeah. Weird. Awkward. Awkward. talking a bit about events, particularly from Curtain Games, because those guys have been fantastic supporting some of the competitions and stuff we've been doing. So we'll be taking a look at some of their events and talking a bit about where do you buy your miniatures and where do we buy ours. And there's a competition winner.
There is a competition winner. Yeah.
Ooh.
Love a bit of a competition winner.
Let's get started after I've decided to do a mini intro.
You have? That's good.
I have, yeah. If you like that, if you like the mini intros, do say. I'll do some more. I've actually forgotten the first... Oh, that's it. Shout outs. So, continuing on the professional vein, Ben.
Yeah.
Instagram.
Well, the wider hobby community that eventually or inevitably seems to end up being Instagram, mainly because that's where I scroll through pictures, because I'm simple when it comes to social media. I like scrolling through pretty pictures and picking them out.
I think you could have finished just at simple.
Yeah, that's fair.
You didn't need to add social media, but...
So the two things that have caught my eye, like, massively over the last 2 weeks, are a post by... a chap whose tag is Prominusive. I wish tags were easy to say. Prominusive. And it's a conversion of the Sisters of Silence with swords and shield. And heads look like they're from Victoria Games, I think. I think I've recognised them from Victoria Games. They are absolutely superb. He's done them for 40k. There's some Sisters of Battle ones in there as too, I think, but perhaps it's quite...
Oh, yes.
They are... he's done them for 40k, but they could so easily be like a Cities of Sigmar unit. They're just wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. I love the kind of cross-hatching and Templar-like shields that they've got. I love the colour choices of purple, gold, and then red and black on the sort of heraldry, but the red being sort of the same purpley red as the cloaks. I love. They're such a neat little unit, all tied together, and I can just see them in 40k and Age of Sigmar. They capture my imagination so well. I think they're an excellent unit, really do. As a sort of general thing with him, he does lots of Imperial Guard conversions. For example, he's converted Empire State Troops to have an Imperial Guard kind of look going on. And
The Vanator 501st is his guard, right?
It is.
Oh, mate, this guy is fantastic. Look, he's even done like a scenery piece of one of them as a statue in the middle of a fountain. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's excellent, isn't it? Really an awesome hobby project, and it's been going for a while. The force is significant. He's also part of that little crew that I really enjoy following, which is taking the Dark Imperium cards with the Blanche drawings on and converting models based on the card. I really love that. And he's done an ace job with the ones that he's done. So, yeah, not only has he got some fantastic models, there's some really excellent scenery in there too. An excellent page to follow. So I would suggest that people go down and have a look and see what they think, because I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised.
Also, really nice to see a lot of interaction. So people asking questions, and he's coming back to them with how he's done things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's always nice.
I think that is always nice, and it's something that we try to do an awful lot, because I think it's important, and I think there's a lot there that I'd love to know how he's done, and you don't want to bombard people with questions, but when you ask, when you really want to know something and someone answers, it's really cool. So cheers for that. So that's number one. I think that's Ace. I'll just read it out again so people know who he is. Prominusive, all one word, Prominusiv. That, of course, will be in the show notes, and on Podbean we put all the tags, and we put it on the show releases and everything, so people will be able to find it. No problem at all.
You're looking at things, aren't you, on your screen?
I am. Yeah. Why?
Because I keep making faces at you, thinking I'm being really funny, and you're not reacting, and it's just kind of dawned on me that it's because you're not actually looking at me.
I am now.
Because I've got you on my iPad, so I've got the computer and the iPad. So I'm sat here like going, "Woo," making stupid faces just to myself.
Well, I'm going to try and keep the screen of you open so I can see you making an ass of yourself then. Number 2, Will Brightly. Will is a local to us. His kind of main hobby centre is at Games Workshop Truro. He was their finalist for the... What on earth did they call it? The big competition... Oh, this is terrible. I'm sorry, guys. It's late and I've had a long day at work. Everchosen. Yeah. He was their finalist for Everchosen, and he made it into the top 100. So congratulations, Will. It's an awesome achievement, and your Auric is fantastic. He's got loads of awesome stuff on there. I enjoy his style of painting. It's ace. And he's a really nice guy, and again, one that will happily, chat to you and give you pointers and tips if you want to chat to him. What he's done recently is really caught my eye. I've seen bases, and then there's bases, and Will is on the latter. Like, it's bases underlined with an exclamation mark with his most recent work. It's a base for a Lizardman warrior. I don't know what company that's from. It's quite a cool one. Not seen it before, but he's built a base for it, a jungle base, and it is whopping and superb. And the cool thing about Will is he posts sort of step by steps, which are really helpful if you're trying to sort of emulate his work. So I really would recommend that. If anyone's interested in basing, like particularly display basing, they have a proper look at that. But his model painting itself is exceptional too. So well worth having a look at. So that's my 2, dude.
That is fantastic. Excellent. Okay, so as ever, it is my pleasure to discuss our own hobby group. And what I do, because there it is. I write it down in my book, and I've lost my book, so I've just found it. It's okay. We're all right. Normal professionalism is resumed. So the first thing I wanted to shout out, and it almost makes me feel sick to do this, but I will do it nonetheless.
You can do it.
Is an absolutely awesome Space Wolf Dreadnought.
It's flipping amazing.
Yeah, so I'm ever so sorry, dude, if I pronounce your name wrong. If you've listened to the podcast thus far, you'll know pronunciation's not my thing anyway. So it's Nanda Vermeulen, and it's his Space Wolf Dreadnought. Absolutely cracking. Really love it. I love the darker grey. I really like. Obviously, he's used the 30k transfers. One of the best Redemptor Dreadnoughts I've seen. I think he's got a really good pose going on, really good amount of weathering. I mean, you must love it.
I do. I really like it. I mean, he posted it on the forum to ask whether we felt that the weathering was too much. Well, no, it's not. It looks amazing. If the style you're going for is that Dreadnought has been wading into battle, you've done it. It looks amazing. Really, really like it.
What's really nice as well is that the weathering is focused on the front.
Yes.
Of the miniature.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of the chipping and scratching is all on the front of the miniature, which I think is ace. Yeah. Really nice little bit of OSL in the top corner there where the light is.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. really massive thanks for posting that, and really look forward to seeing some more of that force. That'd be really good. So well done, very nice. And then I have shouted out Simon before, but I shall do so again because he creates cool stuff. So Simon, Roger Brian Andrews, some awesome. It reminds me of you, dude. Some retro goblins from Quest.
They're next on my list as well, so it's been really inspirational for me.
Yeah, I love them. I think he's done the Troll Slayer as well. Was it the Troll Slayer? Was that Simon?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, he's done
yeah.
he's done a lot of the
doing it all,
of the Warhammer Quest box, original Warhammer Quest box. He's done all the characters.
Yeah, I love it.
Spiders and bats, and now he's done the orcs and goblins. You can't be far off finishing it actually now. To be honest,
no, not at all. So so a couple of really nice things. I mean, to be fair, I was saying to Ben again, some great stuff, really, really great stuff, guys. Thank you so much for being active and posting and commenting. Always means loads to people when they get some comments. And I love people starting their posts with some taglines. Hail to the community. I've seen hail, grab some refreshments. It's fantastic. Yeah. It just makes me chuckle, which is great. So finally, on the hobby group, do need to announce the winner of August's painting competition. Bit more of a challenging one, that one, with terrain. So we had 4 pretty awesome entries, actually. To be fair.
They were really good. Yeah, they were really good.
The winner is Tim Barkley, and his rather fantastic treehouse. I love it.
It's ace, isn't it?
It's it really is. And they're all good entries, but that one is I think the fact that it's scratch built as well has really played in its favour. But it just looks fantastic. Just looks really cool. I think, is that a washing line on the front with a little pair of pants on it? Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, so that's fantastic, mate. Really nice, and thanks to all 4 of you guys that got involved and entered, because that was a big project. Ian did his entire Warcry scenery, but which is fantastic. Ian just powers through stuff. Very, very impressive. Very impressive. But yeah, really good. So thank you very much for that. The theme for this month is Wings of Glory. So I wonder why. Who on earth has influenced that? So, in truth, anything that flies is fair game for this month. So yeah, please do get the stuff you're working on up there. In fact, I will get a post up for a sort of an update post of the Wings of Glory. I'm terrible, aren't I? Really, I just lose everything. I know that there's did I put it up as an announcement? Who knows? Who knows? How many announcements are there? 1, just 1. No, then. Oh well. Oh, hang on. No, right. I'm going to sort that out.
Good job, Dan.
I will sort that out.
Good job.
Good job. On it as well. On it as always.
The finest of social media operators.
I am. The elite of the elite. So, moving into events then.
Yeah. Oh.
Mr. Hall. So, we've chosen to focus our events stuff on our good friends at Curtain on this episode. Really as a massive thanks to them. So, we have recently announced the winner of the 3 monthly competition, Rob, for the hobby group, and we will be doing the same, putting up the post again for the 3 again soon, and that is supported by Curtain, so thank you very much to those guys. Really nice of them to get involved and help us build in our hobby community. So Ben, what have Curtain got going on? What is the excitement?
So I'm going to focus on October and September. Well, we'll start with September, but there's one key event that I want to give a shout out for a bit bit later in the year too. So September the 28th, we've got Star Wars Legion Ground Assault Tournament. Also on September the 28th is X-Wing The Road to Worlds Extended. And on the 29th, the Throne of Eldraine Sunday pre-release, which I believe is Magic the Gathering. So that's a pretty busy weekend for the guys down there. And then first week of October, October the 5th, you've got Catonian Carnage, which is their regular 40k tournaments, and that is on October the 5th. Moving forward all the way to December, though, we have something that I'm really excited about. On December the 7th, they've got their Sigmar First Blood, and this is a really big event. They've decided to do it in the same place that they ran the X-Wing Regionals when they did it last year. So it's a local hall, much more room, and they've got, I think it's 60 spaces, and they are going fast. So it's going to be a really big event, and if there's a lot of interest, they're even thinking of putting a 40k tournament alongside it. These events only happen if people support them. I can't stress that enough, really, because, you know, I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, there's not much of an active community for my game." Insert that, whatever that is. You kind of got to make it happen. You know, you've got to attend the tournaments, you've got to attend the events, and do your best to do that. And I know how hard that is, but for Age of Sigmar, December the 7th, that's a big tournament. And really, if you're interested in competitive gaming for Age of Sigmar at all, I would really encourage people to make an effort to go to that, because if we can get a regular massive tournament like that, at least annually, if not a little bit more often, then the Age of Sigmar community is just going to become stronger and stronger. This will come out, unfortunately, after the next event I'm going to shout out comes out, which is Simon's Scouting for Shadegrass, which is this weekend, unfortunately. So that's been run in Bodmin, and just, you know, a kind of retrospective. Hope that went really well, dude, because it would be cool to have like a big scene further down here in the south, or the Underworld stuff too. So there we go. That's my little shout outs.
Good. So that leads us nicely on to talking about a little bit of bad news, I suppose, really, which is that sadly Terra Games in Newton Abbot have ceased trading. Such a shame, really, because I visited the venue and it was a really nice venue.
Yeah.
And I think it's a reminder, really, that you use it or lose it. And I think, perhaps controversially, I'd take this point just to say, like, don't kid yourselves. Just going is not enough. It doesn't pay the bills. And what I mean by that is, if you are getting some real value from your local games store, please
support them.
Please support them with whatever way you can. And, you know, if that's helping out with running stuff, etc., that's good. But just don't lose sight of the fact that most of these places, there are very few that will be in a comfortable cash flow situation. So if you've got a hobby budget, a disposable income, and you want to keep using that place, not saying that you have to, you don't have an obligation to them. They need to give you a service. It needs to be worth your while to go there. But if you do, and you want to keep doing that, please use that hobby budget in that shop, in that store, or on those events. Because if you don't, it won't stay. Turning up and sitting and painting and then leaving and buying your models somewhere else is not going to help that shop.
No.
And we, you know, having worked for Games Workshop, we saw that all the time, and it is different for a Games Workshop store. in many respects,
It's
because it is part of something
not
much
100% different though, because if a
what-
store is getting a lot of custom through the door, they can employ more staff members, put on more events, do all sorts of stuff. They're not going to be able to do that if they're just making their target. So it does include Games Workshop stores as well. If you're turning up to Vets Night and you're painting in their table, have a think about it, because you'll make your store better by investing in it, whatever it is. But yeah, primarily your friendly local gaming store that we're talking about.
But I think it's worth saying, and Ben and I have discussed at length how we would like to deal with talking about where we buy our miniatures, because we've chosen very early on not to be sponsored as such. We've wanted to be able to support the community and a broad range of people, and the people that kind of support the hobby, the community, and what we're trying to achieve, which has given us pause. But I think the overriding thing for us is we try to buy our miniatures from somewhere that we get our hobby benefits from, where we buy our miniatures. And for some people, that is conversations and lessons. So I often will go and visit Geraint in Games Workshop in Cribs, and I know I can buy stuff cheaper, but I will go there because I love chatting to Ger. And actually, when I'm struggling or I'm not quite firing on all cylinders for my latest project, if I go and chat to Ger, it all comes back. He's a positive guy, and he's a positive guy with a realistic outlook about the hobby. A
terrible view on Space Wars, though. His opinion on Space Wars is shocking.
His opinion on Space Wars is perfect, spot on. So, and a great painter. And then I've recently started visiting the Bristol store a bit more, because I really like speaking to Jay, and I don't go there often because Bristol, I don't like going into the centre of Bristol, if I'm honest.
No one does, mate.
But I get a lot from popping in to see Jay, because he's a positive guy. I go down to Big and I buy stuff in Big because actually I use the gaming area. But conversely, interestingly, then you look at it and you say, well, what about online? So Ben is not particularly near.
I'm not near anything really.
Store.
The closest to me is Mad for Miniatures in St Awe store.
Which is still not on the doorstep. I mean, I expect
half an hour's drive.
If we've got people listening from the States and stuff, they think, oh, well, what are you talking about? It is on the doorstep, but it's not on the doorstep. So actually, the thing that perhaps supports your hobby the most is being able to buy more miniatures. And that's where our next point comes in. So when we were thinking about online, we were looking around, and there's a chap called Simon, who I suppose we want to put our flag in the ground and say, actually, if what you need for your hobby is to get your miniatures at the best possible price you can,
with cracking customer
service, then where we're at is we think from our experience that Simon is spot on. So Simon operates a lot through the Greetings from the Warp group, which you can find on Facebook.
Who is also an awesome community, just for the record.
Which is also an awesome community. But ultimately, so Simon is SVG Hobby and Games. And if you drop him an email, svghobbyandgames@outlook.com, he will add you to a mailing list. And every Saturday that mailing list comes out, and he sells over 1,300 of the Games Workshop lines at 25% off. You do have postage, so you still have to do your postage on that. And it's all done through PayPal. So it is different. It's not like going on a store, but oh my goodness, his customer service is unbelievable. And also he doesn't, with that discount, he has a day job. His big motivation for doing this is making things more accessible. And I don't know, maybe one day you'd like it to be something more. But the accessibility from the great customer service and the great prices is very good. And I think we just wanted to put it out there, really. Yeah. Because we've both had great experiences. We've had great experiences and poor experiences in lots of different places where you buy miniatures. I've been into places where I felt actively discouraged from making purchases.
Yeah.
As well. And I am very finicky with it. I admit that I'm very finicky with it sometimes because I've done good customer service, and I expect it. And so I've rambled on a bit there. Ben, would you like to add to my long?
Yeah, I would. I think when it comes to what we're getting at here, and we've maybe beaten around the bush a little bit, but supporting your local gaming store is so important. If they're giving something back, then I think building local communities makes this hobby so much better. And that can be in a local gaming club or a local hobby store, however you do it. Now, I would echo what you say absolutely with Simon. From the moment I've started dealing with him, he's been fantastic. And I would encourage you to follow what the email that Dan said and have get in contact, because he's a top dude and provides great service.
Yeah, so, good. Okay, so in a summary, much like your chipping summary, there are options depending on what you need. But if you don't support the thing that's giving you what you need with your hobby budget, don't be surprised when it isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Is the sum total of it, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, yeah.
Okie dokie. So that was a bit more deep and thinky again.
That's because we were really sad about it, man. I mean, I was gutted.
Yeah.
When I saw that Terra was gone, I was absolutely gutted, because you went there and saw the store and it was really nice. But I chatted to them a fair bit online. They're really nice people, and their community buzzes. It's just a shame. It's a real shame. And I hate seeing great hobby stores go, because there's so much great hobby in the southwest of England, and it is a bit of an isolated geographical place, because the roads aren't great and it's all spread out in a great big long line. But if we can create those communities, then all the better, really.
Absolutely. Okay, so with that all in mind, it is time for us to go to the wild places.
Born to be wild. That's as much as you get out of me.
Thank goodness for that.
Hi guys, and welcome to the final section of the podcast. It's Into the Wilds. This fortnight we try and alternate between Lord of the Rings, and which is our kind of favourite small game outside of the main GW range, and all the other stuff, which is vast. There's so many things going on, it's almost impossible to keep up with. And in fact, we were having a good old chat about it on Painting Night this week, Dan, about like how the choice has just become so much from so many places, that it's really difficult to have your finger in a lot of pots. If you collect War Machine or Malifaux or Guild Ball, or you're into Marvel and you like the Marvel games coming out, or Fallout, or the list goes on and on and on, and that's not even including the dozens of other smaller games that are starting to make a name for themselves. It's really hard to keep up with. So we try our best, and we bring the things that have caught our eye and our little bimblings around. Invariably, that doesn't tend to be things like how games, because it's difficult for a game set of game rules to catch our eye. But if people have played a decent set of game rules that they really like, and it's the sort of thing we could shout out into the wilds, then we'd very much like to hear about it, because there's some great stuff coming out, and we'd like to put a spotlight on as much of it as we can. Is that fair to say?
It certainly is, buddy. Yeah, I think, like you say, there is just so much out there. It's quite nice to see some stuff still going strong. Especially as a year or two ago, we seemed to lose 3 or 4 quite high-profile
companies
quite quickly. So it's good.
Yeah, I mean, one of the local companies that we've shouted out a few times, just because their products are really amazing, and they're doing a good job of picking up smaller systems and models, ranges that, and working with bigger companies, is TT Combat, which is local to where I work, actually, just down the road, and they're doing a fantastic job of building that business. So, hats off to them. Anytime we want to build a store so I can go in and buy a shizzle off the shelf, that would be awesome, because I like browsing Desai.
Yes.
So, on the vein of MDF scenery, I've chosen to chat about a company that has caught my eye because it's aimed at quite specific environments that often you don't see. So, one of them is what they call Wild West Exodus. I don't often see Wild West stuff kicking around. And they've got a little game system that goes with that. But what I'm really excited about is they've got some new ranges coming out. The first one is, I think, really cool post-apocalyptic-y looking stuff. They're like fairground rides and like little kind of booths for a fair. I love in the idea of like building like a fairground for like Fallout or something, using it, because I think like with moss hanging down and it looking proper rusty, I think that would look amazing.
I have a feeling that concept is linked in with the Batman game.
Yeah, I mean the Killing Joke is what might be what they're aiming at, but they call it Funland, and there's a Ferris wheel, there's a little kind of roller coaster, and a few other things. It's got silly faces and kind of American style games that you would see in a fun fair. I'm really excited about the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
For part of a post-apocalyptic board. And what's really wicked about it is the price is so reasonable. It's £18 for the Funland Ferris wheel. The second range that they're bringing out, which they seem to be pushing it through Wayland Games. The second range that they're bringing out is called, for my very slow computer, called Gloomberg, and it is more the Malifaux Moortime style of building. So they've done a cottage, they've done a blacksmith, they've done a manor, they've done a windmill, which is just superb. They've done sort of bits and bobs, like a drinking trough for
There's a
animals.
well in there as well.
Yeah, and carts and crates. And then they've done practically the whole range again, but ruined. So you could have it so that the board was being destroyed as well, which I really like the idea of. There's so many ways you could use it. Again, there's two things that stand out for this for me. The detail is bonkers good. It looks like it comes a little bit pre-shaded colour-wise, but it's so cheap for what it is. It's unbelievable. The manor is £14, Dan. And that's just insane. The windmill is £16. And it's quite a substantial building, with loads of details in there. Now, one of the things I hear a lot of people say when we're talking about MDF, and we get feedback about it, is, yeah, MDF is really good, but it just looks like MDF. At the end of the day, you can't escape the fact that it's built out of sheet wood. Now, one of the things that's been on these guys' website and Facebook page, Warcradle Facebook page, is a guy that I follow a little bit on YouTube, so it's a little bit of a community shout out too, called Black Magic Craft. They sent the old mill to him, and the end result is just quite simply amazing. So there's two things that you get out of that. Firstly, look at how good it can be. And secondly, there's actually a video out there by this dude about how to do it and make an MDF piece of scenery look like a proper thing. Something that you would have on your table and be proud of. I've always felt with MDF that it's, on its own, it might not be the perfect medium. But when you start adding things in, like what he's done is to put cloth wrapped around the windmill sort of sails.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Tissue paper or whatever to make it look like that they were there. And he's put moss and all sorts of other stuff.
Oh, blimey, yes.
You see what I mean? So he's used the MDF as a kind of skeleton to create something outstanding. And I think that for me, watching that, I only got halfway through before life took over again. And I'll be watching the end of it. But from what I've got for it, it is totally and utterly pinned now on my, when you get your MDF scenery out, I am going to watch this because it would help immensely on how to imagine what you can make your stuff look like. So there's a bit of a community shout out to an awesome hobbyist there, but also a huge shout out to Warcradle for producing the quality kits, and also TT Combat, because they're bringing out some, we shouted them out, not the last episode before, really quality kits for very reasonable prices that I think are well worth looking at. If you're, ways you could use these kits, I mean, we've already spoke about Fallout, and we spoke about Mordheim, Malifaux, Warcry, the stuff that TT Combat is very in keeping with the Warcry stuff. You could set up some properly nice boards using this for a very reasonable price. I think you could fill out a board with excellent scenery for £100. No problem at all. No problem at all. So that's my first one. Do you have any MDF scenery manufacturers that like tickled your fancy over the last month or two, Dan? Because it's a growth market, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think that is really eye-opening, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
That picture of that windmill, if you showed me that and you asked me to tell you what that was made out of, I would have said that was scratch built.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I recognise that some bits of it are scratch built, like he's added a different base and stuff on, but that is really interesting because I think one of the things I see quite a lot is where you see people, MDF companies, trying to make stuff out of MDF that just it's just not suited for.
No, yeah,
but that is quite incredible.
It is. It really is. And you could look at stuff like your foreground scenery with new eyes, I should imagine. But just with a little bit of extra work, you can turn it into something.
But interestingly,
awesome.
You see, with the foreground, you're already paying a premium price to try and get closer to the finished product. So yeah. I'd actually, if I was going to do work to it, I would prefer to go for something like this.
More bare bones.
Yeah. And actually, it's the first time that I felt that way, because generally I'm not a fan. I'm a big fan of foreground stuff because I think it's just on a different level, but I've never been a massive fan of MDF. But that is pretty awesome, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. It really, really is. What I would like to talk about at some point in this little section is our little roleplay group. Yeah. So Ross from House of Chaos Games has been GMing a role-playing group for us using the Pathfinder system on Wednesdays or Thursday nights every other week or quite regularly for some time now. And it's reignited my love of role-playing. I absolutely adore it. It's such a cool way to sit around with a bunch of mates and spend an evening. And I don't know, we have listeners I know who role-play, but I'm finding that it's been a really cool way to spend some hobby time with Jo.
Yeah.
Because we do paint together on occasion. She's not like a batch painter like me. It's like we're talking about how different people approach their hobby. She's definitely not a sit down for 4 hours and paint 60 orcs in 3 weeks kind of painter. But she's a very, very talented model painter, who, what she's working on at the moment is streets ahead of what she was working on last time. And I enjoy sitting down and painting with her, but role playing with her is just an absolute hoot. In the last session, she tried to rob the blacksmith that was selling her like some weapon that was half the price it should have been, and she was trying to pinch stuff out of his pocket to make it cheaper and failed and ended up getting branded. She accidentally kills everyone we're supposed to save. She's just a catastrophe, her character, and it's endless amusement. But what I suppose I wanted to bring out of it is merging role playing into other game systems, particularly one that I've been playing with my kids has been HeroQuest.
Yes.
Which very much plays like a role playing game. You have a games master with a DM screen who's controlling the scenario, and as a result, rules-wise, my littlest one is 4, was able to pick up exactly what she needed to do. As soon as I said, you're going to move, she'd get the dice and roll her movement dice. She knew what she needed to do. She knew what her goal was. And because she was being led in a role-play kind of way, it worked really, really well. I suppose what I would like to bring out of this is that I know we have people who have families listening to this. It's a big part of what we do. Our families are so important to us, and enjoying our hobby with them is a huge deal. And we love it when we see people's hobby posts and they've got their kids playing with them or painting with them. That is just wonderful to see. And I just wanted to highlight how useful that kind of game style is for playing the game with kids. If I was going to teach Tristan to play Age of Sigmar, I would probably teach it in a kind of role-play way now. So guide him through it. Almost have a games master there to sort of guide the game through.
Yeah.
Until he got used to it on his own. And playing things like HeroQuest. Of course, there's newer games. There's far better or more elaborate newer games. But I think the thing about HeroQuest is that it's really simple, so they get it quite well.
Yeah.
So that's that. I'm really enjoying that. I'm thinking of doing a blog of the storyline on our website because it's been really cool.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be very good.
Do you ever play Simon the Sorcerer?
No.
On the PC?
No.
No, my brother did a lot. He's like a young wizard in a stupid robe. My character is like a bit of a mental case wizard that talks to himself because he's got his familiar is actually a demon who got trapped inside his head because of some mistake or something somewhere in his past. Haven't kind of fleshed that bit out. And he ends up talking to himself and arguing with it. And wears zany clothes because when he grew up on the street as a street performer, like doing tricks for people to make money. So he's a laugh and completely different from me. I always like role-playing characters that are completely different from me. Although I do like role-playing the odd barbarian, which is much more at home. There was a third thing we wanted to talk about. What was that?
Well,
you
would wanted to touch on the Kickstarter for the
HeroQuest Kickstarter. Yeah. Let me bring that up. So I posted out a picture of us playing HeroQuest, and Pandemonium Miniatures Games, Pandemonium Games, said, "Oh, yeah, I've been trying to replace my models with this range from another company," and I will just bring them up because I've complete Zealot Lichmire Dungeon. Oh my days! I'm in love with them. What they're doing is they're replacing the Hero Quest models with newer versions of them, and trying to stay as true to those original models as they can in character and feel. And I think they've done an absolutely fantastic job. The project is on Kickstarter. The company is Zealot Miniatures, under the Twisting Catacombs kind of main heading, but it's called the Lichmere Dungeon. And so far they have the 4 main characters. The barbarian, the wizard, the dwarf. The dwarf looks absolutely fantastic. And the elf. And they've also done the orcs and goblins, and the chaos sorcerer, the chaos warrior, the zombies and the skeletons. So, and in the background of one of their pictures is what looks to be the gargoyle and Fimir. So the whole range is pretty much there, and it's the first Kickstarter I've looked at, and I'm very, very seriously considering getting the whole set.
It's interesting. They offer the models in 3 different materials.
Yeah,
don't they? So
they do. So standard resin,
metal,
white metal, and premium resin. Yeah,
I do like that Chaos Warrior.
Yeah, and the whole set, the full range is quite a lot. It's 35 miniatures, and it's the whole thing. And that, if you want it in white metal, is 190 quid. Struggling.
I love the scenery.
Yes, but the scenery. Yeah, the scenery would end up, if you wanted to replace the whole board. Yeah, that could be quite a thing, couldn't it?
Dude, have you checked out their store?
No, not yet. No,
because I didn't realise they're not a new start Kickstarter.
No, it's just kickstarting this range.
Yeah.
That
is awesome, mate. You should see their bookcases and things.
Yeah, because one of the things that I would really like to do is to get some, get some role play kind of Hero Questy scenery to replace it.
Mate, you are gonna go mad when you see this stuff. There's like a little campfire and little braziers, and there's a spinning wheel there. That's amazing. Oh, there's a big anvil. Oh, dearie dear. This is amazing.
I'm now trying to find where you're looking, dude.
I've just gone to their shop. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the Kickstarter where it says scenery, and underneath it says to see better pictures of the scenery, click here. Oh my goodness, there's like a minecart. Oh dear. See, this is the stuff. Like you could just spend a lifetime.
Yeah, you could spend you could have a whole hobby just buying stuff for role playing.
Yeah, and just like fully do the immersion thing on it. Oh, what's that? Unholy Circle, active and inactive. Oh my goodness. So, whilst I am thoroughly enjoying this, I don't imagine it's making the most fantastic podcast listening.
No, but it's there. It's a great looking company. We'll obviously put all the links up, not only for the new range, but for their website too, because I think if you're a fan of Hero Quest, they're a wicked alternative, really. What I'm really loving is the fact that they're selling the Hero Quest style bases for them to go on as a basing pack.
Yes.
Because I wanted to take the models off their bases to really sort of give them a little bit of love. But of course, to do that, you have to snip the bases off. And I was going to mount them on round bases so that I could use them in other games. But I'm now seriously considering, very seriously considering putting them on, on these bases. So, yeah, really exciting stuff. Especially if you're into nostalgic stuff like me.
Yeah.
Right.
So, sorry about that. I've definitely sucked in, so definitely do check out that website. In fact...
If it's made Dan go quiet, then it must be good.
In truth, to make this actually worth listening to, I would suggest you go and find the website, rewind the podcast about 5 minutes and listen along, because then you can see what I'm talking about. So, yeah, thank you very much for joining us. So that was episode 48. Would you believe, Ben? Madness.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
What I'd like to ask people for the end of episode homework is, what would you like, or what do you think would be cool for us to do for episode 50? So almost make episode 50 dictated by you guys, because we'd like to do something special, really, because it's a big milestone.
Yeah,
I think it's a big milestone. So, yeah,
very exciting. Good times.
It is.
So, as ever, guys, if you've enjoyed listening, we hope you have. If we could ask that you guys tell people, share it about. If you're feeling really generous, stick a review, particularly on iTunes, but also on Facebook or on Podbean. It's really helpful. Really, really does help us. We try not to just share into everybody's groups ourselves, because when we first started, we did that somewhat just to get the name out there, but it's, you end up with whole groups which are just adverts, and that's not fair because somebody's set that group up. But I think it's quite different if you've had a positive experience with someone else's product or offering and you share that in. So if you're up for that, that would be great. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at the 2P's podcast. We are also on YouTube, and we have 2P's in a pod is the website. And lastly...
2p'sinapod.com.
Yes, .com. Lastly, and certainly by no means least, is a massive thank you, as ever, to our patrons. We've said it before and we'll say it again. We don't massively push it. We don't have an intention to put any of the podcast content behind a paywall, but that in no way takes away from the fact that we are incredibly grateful to our patrons, because that money goes towards hosting the podcast, hosting the site, and my spray tan.
Oh, my days. That's an image I did not need in my mind.
That's a lot of tan. So, on that bombshell, thank you very much for listening. Ben, it's been a blast. We will catch you all again in episode 49.